My narcissistic boss constantly puts me down by saying that she's smarter than me while also placing herself on a pedestal that truly was incredibly fragile. So I decided to get some revenge by not only tricking her into not doing her job, but doing it in such a way where she couldn't argue that I wasn't doing exactly as she told me. Here's what happened. Okay, so about 20 years ago, I used to work as an office assistant at a small company where we would receive orders from clients, and then we would assign the work to one of our freelancers who were well compensated and respectable professionals. My boss was such a professional herself, and when possible, we would assign that work to her as well. I accepted the minimum wage job because she told me that I could sometimes get tasks assigned as a freelancer with a nice freelancer compensation, and that she would personally train me, stating that in less than a year, I would most likely be promoted to a regular freelancer and make very good money. So this sounded like a great career path in my young and naive ears. One of the things she had told me in the very beginning was that when you take over an order, you become like a project manager for that order. You need to make sure that the freelancer would finish the work on time, as the work was usually time sensitive. Additionally, she loved going on long lectures about how she is paying me for me to use my brain and figure things out when necessary. These lectures were mainly a vehicle for her to stroke her own ego by explaining to her employees how our brains were not as smart as hers. One day, our biggest corporate client had placed a large order that was due on a Monday by noon, and we had assigned the task to my boss to do over the weekend. It was Monday morning and the time was ticking, and my boss had not arrived at the office yet, and the client had called to see if we were going to provide the work soon, as it was urgent. I tried calling my boss, who didn't pick up her mobile, and I called half an hour later and I even texted her, but still I got no answer or reply while noon was also fastly approaching. So I called her landline at home. Her husband picked up, told me she wasn't at home, and I explained very briefly why I was trying to get a hold of her. Well, less than an hour before noon, my boss called furious that I had been so insistent on getting a hold of her and that I had created a stage of stress and emergency at her house. She said her home number was for emergencies only, and this apparently wasn't an emergency. She said to me, "It's not professional to call people when they are not at work." She then told me she got everything under control and she was now sending the work to the client directly. Well, when she arrived at the office, she gave me a big scolding in person and told me that I do need to hound other freelancers, but not her. It was her business and she got everything handled. She knew all of the clients and they were clients because of her. She then looked me in the eye and told me, "If I take over a task, it's not your task anymore, it's mine. You do not need to bother me with reminders. You just give me the instructions from the client and I'll handle everything myself. From that point on, your job is done. I never ever miss my deadlines. If the client calls, you tell them I'm on it and you don't call me or text me about it." And you know what? Fair enough. But it was here that I decided to get my revenge. I then apologized for the stress and repeated the new instructions back to her for confirmation, and she was very happy with that and confirmed that I understood everything. She once more gave me her favorite lecture about how she is paying me to use my brain, with a lot of condescending examples of how she is always using her brain unlike us normal workers. And all I could do was nod along, as if her narcissistic rant was actually teaching anybody anything. Well, about a month or so later, another client came in with another order. So I accepted it and my boss was available to handle it, so I forwarded everything to her and I considered my work in regard to that order done as instructed. On the day of the deadline, I was on vacation and was hiking in a remote area with spotty cell coverage. Well, the other office assistant called me and told me that the client had called the office to check if the work was ready. I then just told my colleague that our boss was on it and that we didn't need to worry as our boss was going to handle it, and that my clear instructions were to tell the client that our boss was personally on it. The task would be done by the deadline, and that I was explicitly told not to call our boss to remind her of the deadline. Then, since I was on vacation, I needed to conserve my battery and everything at the office was handled, so I switched off my phone. An approaching deadline that my boss had to meet was explicitly not an emergency. Also, I had recently realized that my boss had knowingly misled me about the career opportunities that this job was affording me, so I wasn't going to be on call on my rare days off. While I was hiking without a care in the world, my boss had managed to forget about the deadline. By the time she realized she had missed it, the office was closed. My boss had urgently finished the work, but it turned out she didn't know the client so well as she didn't have their contact details. As the order was in the office and my phone was off, she had to go there herself, fetch it, and use the contact details to deliver the work late. This was particularly embarrassing as my colleague had informed the client our boss was personally doing the work for them. Well, when I came back to work, it was absolute pandemonium. She screamed at me, but I simply pointed out that everything I had done was following her instructions. response. She would say stuff like, "Why did you do this?" But I told her, "Well, you told me to." And any other counter argument she brought up, I would literally just re-explain what she told me. Well, she was fuming, but she knew I was correct, and I had acted exactly as instructed. She also screamed at me for my phone being off, but I said I needed to conserve my battery for emergencies, and this was clearly not an emergency, and I'm not on call while on vacation anyways. Now, you might be thinking that this is a win for me, right? Well, narcissists never accept blame, and she had an idea of how to shift the blame to me after all. She said to me, "But you didn't provide me with the client's contact details with the order assignment. How could I have delivered them the work? It was your fault for not providing me with all the information." I then pointed out that she told me she knew all the clients personally, but if she had just used her brain like she is constantly telling us to, she could have easily noticed that the order instructions were on the client's letterhead with all their contact details spelled out, and it's literally on every single page, mind you, on the top and bottom of it. Now that was a huge slap to her fragile ego, and remembering her face in that moment still makes me smile. Needless to say, I was fired, but of course I didn't mind, because that job sucked and I truly didn't want to work there in the first place. Wow, that lady is an idiot. She seriously still found some kind of way of blaming this on you, even though you literally did nothing wrong. Because let's think about it for a second. You followed her instructions exactly. You repeated it back to her, and still it wasn't good enough. And the original poster is right. Narcissists like this will never accept any responsibility, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. So sure, you got fired from that job, but honestly, I think you could do way better than that, because this lady sounds like an absolute piece of work. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive if my wife is in the car? Because she is one of the most obnoxious people on planet Earth to deal with when I'm driving. Here's what happened. Okay, so for years after we got married, I could never figure out why I would be so angry and moody anytime my wife and I went somewhere. But then it finally clicked. I was only in a bad mood if I drove with my wife. My wife is the absolute worst backseat driver I've ever seen. It doesn't matter how I drive. She still finds things to complain about. She'll say stuff like, "Why did you go this way? If you'd gone that way, we would be there by now." She'll complain about me driving too fast or driving too slow. She'll say that I could have made a light or that the light was red and I blew right through it. She'll say that I slammed my brakes way too hard, that there are 17 great parking spots and I had to choose spot number 18, which is apparently the worst. She'll say that I turned my blinker on too late or that I turned my blinker on too early, while also complaining about me accelerating so slowly, while then complaining that I'm accelerating way too quickly. And this is literally just scratching the surface. So for the past couple of years, I have refused to drive. I now make her do all the driving, and lo and behold, I'm no longer a grumpy person when we travel. She has now gotten upset that she now is always driving and told me that I need to at least split it 50-50 with her. I told her that if she could just keep her opinions to herself while I was driving, then I absolutely would, and she agreed. So last weekend I started driving, and she couldn't even last 3 minutes without criticizing my driving. I then pulled over and I told her I'm done. Either she takes over driving or we're going home. Eventually, she took the wheel, which is right as she muttered that I drive like a moron, even though there's only one of us who has any tickets and has at-fault accidents on the record, and that person is not me. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to drive if she's present? Because right now, I don't know what to do. I don't blame you for a second, and no, you are not the jerk. Your wife needs to chill out. Seriously, if you're gonna split it 50-50, then she needs to do what you're doing. You're not sitting there criticizing everything she's doing. You're not micromanaging her expectations. So why on earth is she doing that to you? It sounds incredibly frustrating and very annoying to deal with. And honestly, I don't blame you for getting upset in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my bedroom for my niece and nephew? All because my parents demand it, since my sister is now living with us after her divorce. But after I said no, everybody's now treating me really differently and the entire house is very tense. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 19-year-old female and I still live at home with my parents while I attend college. I pay for my own tuition and contribute to the household expenses when I can, but since my school is local, living at home saves me a ton of money. Recently, my older 27-year-old sister and her 2 kids, ages 5 and 3, moved back in after her divorce. She is struggling financially, and my parents are letting her stay here rent-free until she gets back on her feet. And I get that it's a tough situation, so I've been helping out with the kids when I can. Well, the issue is that my parents want me to give up my bedroom so that my sister's kids can have their own space. We have a small house and my sister's already taking the guest bedroom, so the kids are currently sleeping with her. But my parents think that it would be better for them to get their own room and are now asking me to move to the couch or make do by squeezing into their office space. But you know what? I said no. I've lived here my whole life and this is still my home. home, and I need my own space, especially since I have a heavy college workload. I don't see why I should have to be the one to sacrifice my room when this situation isn't my fault. Well, my sister's upset, saying that her kids are uncomfortable, and my parents are disappointed in me for not being more understanding. And now the whole house is tense, and I'm wondering if I'm being selfish. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm incredibly annoyed. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It is completely unreasonable for them to expect you to literally uproot your entire life just so the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old can have a place to stay in, which, by the way, they can easily stay in that room with your older sister. This is not a permanent situation for her, as I'm willing to imagine that they're probably looking for an apartment of some kind. Like, they can't possibly be thinking they're gonna live here forever, right? So no, if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing, because what they're asking of you, in my opinion, is completely unreasonable. Am I the jerk for telling a coworker to stop brown-nosing and sucking up by going to a funeral for a man that he literally didn't know just so he can look good in front of the higher-ups? Here's what happened. Okay, so last week, a long-retired former coworker passed away, and this is someone who was very popular and well-known in our company. I've worked with him in a close team setup for several years and was really sad when I learned that he passed away. Next week is his funeral, and me and some of my other coworkers who worked with him wanted to attend the funeral. But this is where the biggest issue comes into play. We have one coworker who has severe fear of missing out and is kind of a brown-noser to the higher-ups. He only knows about the deceased man from the stories that we tell about him. And he met him only once at a company function where they talked for like 5 minutes in a group setting. This guy is now running around the company and tells everybody how tragic the death is and how affected he is by this. Also, when I told my boss that I needed PTO to attend the funeral, I was told that it would not be possible, as at least one team member has to be present in the company, and said coworker had already asked for PTO so that he could attend the funeral. When I asked him if we could switch, he told me no, we would not be able to, because he wants to join the funeral, as it would be a good thing to join, and management will sure appreciate it. Well, that's where I lost it, and I told him to stop brown-nosing and making the death of a coworker that he didn't know all about him. Since then, he complained to our boss that I was rude to him, but most of our coworkers are on my side. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because honestly, I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This really is super stupid. This guy doesn't even know the guy that passed away. He's only doing it because he wants to look good, and that literally is not a good enough reason to take off work. Like, you actually knew the guy, and now you're getting denied PTO all because this guy wants to go. So no, you're not the jerk for calling him out, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. My girlfriend has monthly mental breakdowns and panic attack episodes that quite literally reverts her back to being a 3-year-old, where she is screaming and crying in a way that is truly not okay. And now I'm wondering if this is actually someone I want to spend the rest of my life with, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for 2.5 years now. We matched online and I totally fell for her. This has been my longest relationship ever, and just 3 weeks after we started dating, we took a road trip to go camping, and that's when I genuinely started falling in love with her. Only a few weeks after that, we started exchanging I love yous. She's been able to put up with my annoying quirks and I with hers. We enjoy so much of the same things, but also enjoy our own things as well. We love traveling and we've been all over together, and it's honestly the most fun exploring and experiencing new things with her. She's always open to try new things and experience new food and all this other stuff, and it's nearly everything I've dreamed of in a relationship, besides maybe 30% of it. The other part that is totally weighing me down as I approach whether I want to spend the rest of my life with her or not is that sometimes once a month, sometimes more, she has a total and complete meltdown, just totally non-functional. I've never seen another adult human cry like this, and we're not talking like ugly crying, but a 3-year-old temper tantrum level crying. And the first time it happened, I nearly broke up with her, but I have way too much patience and I just let it keep going. I weighed all the positives, and dealing with the one breakdown a month seemed worth it. Now, for some context, my mother growing up would also have monthly breakdowns, although hers were slightly different. She would just get really angry. Plates were thrown across the room, smashed into the floor, there was yelling, and she would say she's gonna leave, and I just have many vivid memories of my dad begging my mom to stay, where he would apologize and grovel for her to stay. And these images are burned into my brain to this day, which is ultimately what led to their divorce. My dad couldn't take it anymore and started cheating and kicked my mom out. Well, every time these happen with my girlfriend, it just triggers all those feelings I have as a child, of being frightened, fearing my mom would leave me, etc. But I bite my tongue, I hold her, I comfort her, and I try to calm her down. And these go on for 3 to 12 hours at a time. I can't leave her alone because then she tries hurting herself, and if I try to do anything other than comfort her, it pushes her further into her spiral. She claims she's self-aware during these episodes, but she acts like she's reverted to a 3-year-old child. She is aware that this is a problem, and she gets angry with herself for letting it happen, even though I reassure her that I understand. boyfriend. I've tried to do research and help her figure it out, but she gets extremely angry when I put on my doctor hat. So I've supported her in trying to figure it out. She's been seeing a therapist weekly, sees a psychiatrist, has been seen by doctors, where she also did 6 months of therapeutic ketamine, and so on and so forth. But nothing has improved, and it's only gotten worse, with one of the recent episodes forcing me to nearly call 911 as she was driving at the time, where she then pulled over her car and started to run away with no coat in the middle of winter. And yeah, it's once a month like clockwork. My mother recently made the realization as she started to go through menopause, and her doctor diagnosed her with PCOS and severe PMDD, and that explains her major freakouts once a month, because now she's extremely calm. Even just 10 years ago, she would call me telling me about her plan to end it all, and now she's just totally normal, and she's expressed that it's probably the same for her. So all I'm thinking about is this: will this be my life if I choose to marry her? Can I put up with monthly breakdowns? I'm totally stuck because I do love her, but I really don't know what to do at this point. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, if you did want to leave her, you are well within your rights. I totally understand that you love her and you do want to be there for her, but if this is too much for you, then you have every right to step away. That doesn't make you a bad person, it just means that you literally are not a good fit for her. And sure, she's having breakdowns where she's becoming a 3-year-old child, and yeah, it definitely sounds like she needs a doctor or some kind of medical intervention. And I think you're going about this in the right way, where you're like, okay, do I really want to put up with this for the rest of my life? Because I can confidently say, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, no, I would not be able to do this. I would not be cut out to deal with this kind of outburst every single month like clockwork, and I definitely would not be able to dedicate 12 hours of my day just to make sure she doesn't hurt herself. At that point, it's time to get in a hospital of some kind, because that is not normal. And I don't say that to be insensitive, but seriously, let's think about this for a second. She's clearly going through some mental health crisis, and I guarantee you there's way better things that you can do to help her out than just holding her for 12 hours and being like, yeah, I'm gonna be there for you, which in and of itself is not a bad thing to do. But I really think there's better options here that someone who's actually qualified for this can help her out with. So no, you would not be the bad guy if you did walk away from this relationship, because I know if I was in your shoes, I don't think I would ever be able to put up with this. My super religious parents don't know that I'm gonna be moving out and living with my boyfriend, and because of their religious choice, I honestly am so worried they're gonna judge me harshly and possibly reject me entirely, making me feel incredibly worried and very concerned. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating since June of 2024 and made our relationship official in August. So far, we have a very loving and healthy relationship with great communication. We both see this as a long-term commitment and are marriage-minded, so we actively work on a relationship and don't let small issues break us apart. Although my boyfriend has his own place, he has essentially been living with me since November while still paying his own bills from afar. My name is the only one on my lease, and I don't receive any financial support from my parents. I have a stable job and so does he. And since we both work from home, we spend almost all of our time together. Recently, we applied for a new apartment together and got approved. We're set to move in at the end of April, and this is an exciting step for us, but I'm struggling with how to tell my parents. My parents are very religious and have strict beliefs about relationships. We can't spend quality time together before marriage, if you know what I mean. We can't have any sleepovers. There's no living together before marriage, and ideally, I should be with someone who shares those same values. Now, I don't agree with all of their views, especially regarding living together before marriage. I believe it's a smart decision because it allows me to see how my partner operates daily and ensures that we are truly compatible before making a lifelong commitment. Up until now, I have never told my parents when I spent the night with a boyfriend, let alone that my current boyfriend has been staying with me for months. I know that revealing our new living situation will disappoint them, and it may cause strain in our relationship. However, I've spent my entire life trying to please them, hiding parts of me that don't align with their beliefs, and it has made me very miserable. And you know what? I don't want to keep living like that. I want to be honest about my choices and have them accept me even if they don't agree. So for those who have been in similar situations or have any advice on me finally putting my foot down on my independence, how should I handle this in a respectful but firm way? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, first and foremost, I think you need to take a step back and realize that you are an adult now. For reference, the original poster here is 23 and their boyfriend is 24. So seriously, if you wanted to live with your boyfriend, you absolutely have every right to, regardless of what your parents think. That really is something you can do, and it really will be okay. In terms of how to talk about it, honestly, that's between you and your parents. You know them way better than anybody possibly could, so you know how they're gonna react, and from the sounds of it, they're probably gonna be disappointed pretty much no matter what. It doesn't really sound like you're gonna win them over anytime soon, and there may be a chance that they just don't accept what you're doing, and they're like, wow, this is wrong. Even though I think that you have every right to move in with your boyfriend if you want to. So I think if I was in your shoes, I would be as open and honest as possible while still trying to like carve some kind of like connection with them still, because from the sounds of it, they seem really strict, but it doesn't sound like they're the type of people who would like cut you off all of a sudden, all because you're doing something they don't completely agree with. So yeah, hopefully this all works out in some kind of way, because this really does sound like a tricky situation, and it totally makes sense as to why you would be hesitant about having this conversation with your parents in this way. My entitled mother steals my car to give it to my sister, all because my sister apparently needs it more after she is struggling through a really bad divorce and doesn't have a car to get around. And now I'm stuck at a crossroads where I'm not sure if I should get the police involved. Here's what happened. So I live with my mom in a rural part of the United States. For context, when it comes to my sister who's 37, she is much older and we come from different fathers. We both grew up in a split custody arrangement. We are not particularly close, almost acquaintances more so than siblings. I don't really feel any family connection, even though I do love her. I also don't feel obligated to bend over backwards just for her. Well, my sister lives 2 hours away in a much more urban area and is currently going through a divorce. Her and her ex-husband only had one vehicle and it belongs to the ex-husband. So when they split, he took the car. My sister has 4 daughters and works a full-time job. I, on the other hand, work from home and have no real external responsibilities. My mom came to me asking if my sister could borrow my car for a couple of months until the divorce is finalized so she can have a way of transporting her and her kids to wherever they need to go without the financial burden of purchasing another car or relying exclusively on ride sharing. Now, I just bought my car and it's my first vehicle ever. I didn't get a hand-me-down or get one as a present when I turned 16 or 18 years old. I was basically immobile, except occasionally being allowed to drive my mom's car, or when my dad had me, I could get Ubers. Getting my own vehicle was extremely liberating, minus the loan that I have to pay off, and I don't feel trapped at home. So when I was approached with this proposal, I flat out said no. I can totally understand the justification for letting her use my car for a couple of months, but aside from the fact that I don't want to lose my newfound sense of freedom, I also don't want someone else driving my car, and maybe that's just selfish of me. Over the last few days, my mom and sister had been trying to convince me to let her use the car, saying that she would pay for the car payments while she has the car, or that she would pay for insurance if she has it longer than anticipated. No matter what they brought to the table, I kept saying no, which was much to their dissatisfaction. Fast forward to this morning, and I realized that my mom isn't home. I open our garage to see that her car was still there, but mine was not. I immediately knew what was happening, and I called my mom about the situation. She just tries to calm me down and have me try to picture it from my sister's point of view, but I'm just flushed with rage, and instead just tell her that I'm going to report the vehicle as stolen instead. She then just hung up the phone. As of now, I presume that my car is now down with my sister, and I am seriously considering reporting it as stolen and naming her and my sister as the perpetrator and conspirator. I really don't want to go that far, and I hope that we could instead work this out. But what I initially said as an angry threat, I'm starting to really consider it as an option. I just don't know if it's worth burning so many bridges over a car, but the fact that my family won't respect my boundaries or my property that I own is incredibly frustrating. What should I do? This is crazy to me. These people actually went out of their way and stole the original poster's car just to give it to her sister. Like, that is unbelievable, and it's absolutely not okay in my book. Like, your mom straight up stole it. She took your car and drove it down to your sister instead of respecting your boundaries and saying, okay, let's find another option. It doesn't matter if you work from home and only drive around when you need to. That is your car. They can't just straight up take it and be like, okay, your sister's using it now. Like, if they owned it, it would be different. There might be some wiggle room for an argument here for them to be like, no, it's our car. We're gonna give it to your sister until she figures her life out. But that is not the case. The original poster owns that car. That is their vehicle. They pay insurance on that, and nobody gave it to them. And they have every right to that car, as well as every right to say, no, I don't want to loan it out. This is so unbelievably disrespectful and highly illegal. And if I was in your shoes, I would not be taking this sitting down. There are several options you can pursue in this regard, but if I was in your shoes, I would give them both one final opportunity to give me my car back. I would tell them straight up, listen, this is it. You can either give me my car back and that's the end of this, or I'm gonna have to escalate this and get the police involved. You can choose for yourself how you want to handle this, but just know that I absolutely do not consent to you taking my car. And then you just wait to see what they have to say, because at the end of the day, you have final say on this matter, not your mother or your sister. They do not get to decide decide what you do with your property. And sure, your sister is in a tough situation, and obviously I don't think you're tone deaf to the circumstances that she is in, but at the end of the day, it is still your decision what you do with your car. So hopefully you can figure this out, because if somebody stole my car, I probably would lose my mind, and there's no way I would ever let that happen. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for outshining my husband at his birthday party by announcing that I was pregnant? Here's what happened. So I found out a day before my husband's birthday that we were expecting our first baby. I wanted to make it special for him, so I decided to tell him the next day. He does not really like to celebrate his birthdays, but this year, his family is moving abroad, so we decided to throw a party where all close family and friends can gather before they move away. All of them were the people whom I knew were gonna be very happy about this news, so I decided to announce it in front of everyone. My husband was, of course, the happiest one, but after that, the rest of the party was all about me and the baby. Some of them even forgot to wish him happy birthday because they were busy congratulating me. I kind of feel bad about taking the attention away from him, but he didn't even seem to mind it. Later that day, his best friend came to me when I was in the kitchen just to say that it was very selfish of me to announce my news when it was my partner's day. He said that my partner does not even celebrate his birthdays, and now that he decided to celebrate one, I should not have made it all about myself. He even accused me of doing it on purpose because according to him, I cannot stand it when all the attention is not on me. I decided not to argue with him because he's never like me to begin with, but I can't help but feel awful for taking all the attention away from my husband. Now, he has not said that he's upset about this, and I haven't told him yet what his friend said, so now I'm kind of at a loss, and I'm not sure if the friend's right, and I should have held off on telling this news to the entire family. What should I do? Honestly, I would not worry about what this friend says. If anything, I would go directly to your husband and ask him specifically and say, okay, did you like this or not? Because his opinion is all that matters in the end. This other friend, on the other hand, is just being ridiculous. They're making assumptions on behalf of your husband, and they're just trying to assume that, oh wow, he probably didn't like that. That was really selfish of you. But in reality, all that matters is your husband's opinion. So that's what I would do if I was in your shoes. I would go to him and see if he's okay with this announcement. Because chances are, if he really does care about you, he's probably not gonna mind this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my brother's overflow wedding section when I'm his immediate sister and I feel I deserve to be there in the main wedding? Here's what happened. So my brother had been planning a wedding with his fiance for a year now. My brother and I have never been close because of our age difference, but it's not like we don't get along. They'd been dating for a few years, and his fiance wanted to have this giant wedding with all of our family and hers plus friends and plus one. But unfortunately, they really couldn't afford it. They finally agreed to have this wedding at a venue that is somewhat small, and it's one that they can afford, but it doesn't allow for more than 100 people at a time. I guess her and her parents were mad about this because more than 100 people just in her family and friends list needed to be invited and their plus ones. So they made a compromise where some people would be part of the 100 and the rest would be in the wedding overflow. So they would still be invited, but they wouldn't mess up the limit that the venue has. The guests in the overflow room would watch the ceremony on a live stream video projected into this movie theater nearby the venue that they would rent out. So I guess renting out a room in a theater was probably their cheaper option. Apparently though, her list is way more important. So instead of showing up to the main wedding, I was invited to the overflow wedding. I was so angry about this. I asked him what this was about when we were at my dad's birthday party 2 weeks after I got the invite. He said it was fine because I could then just go to the reception. I told him that it was the principle of the matter though. I am his immediate family, so I should be able to go to the normal venue. He told me that he needs to make her family happy and that I should be more understanding. Then he said we're not that close a family anyways and that she needs to be happy on her wedding. So basically, I told him that I will not be attending the wedding and that I should get to go to the main ceremony. He got mad at me and we all started yelling and fighting. Multiple people at the party yelled at me for making a scene and that it's her day and I should be grateful for even getting to go to the overflow. So am I the jerk at this point for just refusing to go to this wedding? What should I do? Honestly, you are not the jerk in this situation. The fact that you being immediate family can't have some kind of spot in this main section of the wedding is proof enough that he doesn't care about you in the slightest. If he really wanted you there, he would have fought to have you there. This is a very simple situation of logistics. It really shouldn't be that hard to say, okay, immediate family first, first, and then I move to extended family and then go from there. It's also a really bad sign that this guy is bending to his wife's every demand. Like seriously, this is supposed to be a partnership. You're supposed to be working together to get everybody there who's supposed to be there. So the fact that he decided not to invite you to the main section of his wedding, all under the guise of, well, we're just not that close anyways. I just need to make my wife happy. That, in my opinion, is not a good sign, and it's proof enough that you can know for a fact that he doesn't care about you in the slightest. So honestly, I don't blame you for not going. It's not like you're asking for a lot, and the way your brother is acting is completely uncalled for. My entitled company I used to work for made the assumption that they didn't need my help anymore when I put my notice in to try and go to a new job. But eventually they tried to serve me legal paperwork stating that they were suing me for not helping them with the transition period. And I've never been more shocked in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm going to be intentionally vague with the industry I worked in just for privacy reasons. For some context, this company wasn't new. They had been around for about a decade before I was hired, and as far as I know, they're still around, but I'm not sure how they're doing nowadays. When I started there, it was only about 60 employees in total, with about 15 to 20 of them being hourly wage nobodies just like me. I just had the luck of the draw that my team had 4 managers over my area. I was in a role that wasn't supposed to have any management elements, but as it turns out, not long after I started, a few on the management team moved on, and I slowly took over some of their responsibilities. After about 6 months, I was starting to feel overworked, and I went job hunting to find something else. Having listed the responsibility I had with this position got me a management role somewhere else, with substantially higher pay as well. I even got them to let me have a month before starting because I wanted to give a longer notice than 2 weeks just to be nice. After I had given my 1 month notice, they were very dismissive of me leaving and acted like it wasn't a big deal. They thought they could spread out what I did among the other management teams. They were so certain that they could handle my job description of responsibilities that they even told me in writing they didn't need a transition period or training and didn't want an exit interview. They even offered me a week early leave with pay because they just thought it was handled and that I was completely useless. Before that week was out, I was getting calls, text messages, and emails from higher ups and HR trying to tell me that I'm contractually obligated to help them transition and that if I didn't, that they then would sue me for breach of contract. Now, the best part about this is that when I was hired, I was simply an hourly employee with no special contract besides the standard employee agreement for hourly workers. But since I had started doing management level work, everyone had assumed that I was made to sign the management contract, which had a clause in it that required management to work past their notice if the company requested it for handover training or anything the person was working on that couldn't be finished by anyone else. So within a week, they were frantically trying to get me to help them, but I had already started working with my new company half a week early. So I was ignoring their calls, their text messages, and emails because I was diving headfirst into this new role. Well, even after the threats, I thought they would figure out that I didn't sign that contract. About another week later, I was served papers at my new office, and it shocked me, honestly. I read over the paperwork, and they were suing me for breach of contract, and it listed a law firm on the paperwork, obviously. So I decided to call them up and ask them if they had signed a contract, and I was laughed off the phone by the law office clerk. I realized I shouldn't have called them and should have just gotten my own lawyer. But just 3 days later, I received a certified letter from the law firm with an official apology for being served and had official documentation showing they had dropped the lawsuit. Apparently, they dropped that company as a client for unethical practices. And after that, I never got another text message, a call, or an email from anyone at that company or law firm. And it felt nice that I shut down a lawsuit, all because I never signed a contract. That really is a crazy situation. Imagine this, you're working a job, you're working as a manager, and apparently there's some kind of mysterious contract you're supposed to sign up for. And then when you're trying to leave to go to a better job, these people freak out and they're like, no, you can't leave yet. You gotta help us transition. Even though they literally put in writing basically saying, hey, we don't need your help. Like, what a bunch of morons. Why would they act like that? They clearly did not have their ducks in a row, and it's pretty obvious that no one would enjoy working there. I mean, these people threaten litigation for literally the dumbest reasons. They were willing to stop you working at your current company, all because they obviously couldn't handle the pressure that they were under. So good for you for not only not signing that contract, but also finding a new job that's gonna treat you right. Because these other people were just straight up awful, and they clearly did not know what they were doing, and you're so much better off getting away away from this weird company. An entitled customer sits in his car and honks his horn demanding to get a menu so that he can order from his car. But when he did that, I was so angry, so I gave him a piece of my mind and put him in his place. Here's what happened. To start things out, I'm finishing a busy patio shift yesterday at the restaurant that I'm a server at. I'm talking to one of my tables and facing the street. A man sitting in a very fancy convertible, think like a Bentley type car, with the top down has been sitting in front of the restaurant a minute or so. As I'm speaking to my table, he actually honks the horn of his car while looking directly at me. My brain was instantly like, oh no, this is not happening. I had been having a pretty good shift. Most of the people were really nice because it was a holiday. My patience was just starting to wear thin just a bit because it was the end of a shift. The horn honk and his gesture to come over sent me completely over the top. I was completely indignant. He held up a menu from a different restaurant, gestured to it, and then gestured to me again in a come here motion. He's not gotten out of his car or said one word. My assumption was that he wanted me to bring him one of our menus. I'll honestly never know, since he couldn't bother to use his words like an actual adult. I called out to him and said, "What? Do you want to see a menu? Sir, you have to come into the restaurant and get one. I'm not bringing it to your car. I don't know what kind of place you think this is." His response was to point at his head before driving away. He literally never said a word. The whole patio began laughing. My table I'd been talking to said that they'd been visiting and gained a new respect for our city. They also tipped $40 on a $130 check, so my indignant rage was actually profitable. My coworkers all thought it was a ridiculously funny encounter too. I honestly don't know what that guy's problem was, but I was definitely not in the mood for their main character syndrome. Yeah, I'm right there with the original poster. There's no way after working so long at a restaurant all day and being close to the end of the shift, I'm gonna deal with some weirdo in a car being like, "Come here, I wanna look at your menu." Like, no, that's not how this works at all. This is not Sonic, sir. You gotta come inside if you want a menu. And the original poster is 100% right here. This is some serious main character syndrome. They're trying to act like they're the main character in this story, when in reality, they're just an extra. They just sit in the peripheral, and they're acting like they have some kind of privilege, all because they're driving a fancy car. So honestly, good for the original poster for putting their foot down. You absolutely made the right call by doing that, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for having an outburst at my girlfriend's little sister and banning her from our home after she trashed the place and has been overall disrespectful to me for several months now? Here's what happened. So I've lived with my girlfriend Jane for 2 years now, and Jane has a 16-year-old sister by the name of Tammy. Jane and Tammy are not their real names. Tammy lives with their parents, but Jane and Tammy have a very rocky relationship with their parents. Nothing too bad, but it's toxic nonetheless. For the last 6 months or so, Tammy has begun staying over at the apartment that me and Jane share. I've always been somewhat uncomfortable with this, mainly because it's common for Jane, who works from home, to let Tammy skip school and come spend the day just with her. She says it's better than her being on the streets, but I digress. My biggest problem is that Tammy trashes the place and has no respect for me. Tammy just doesn't like me. I don't know why, and Jane does not know why either. She is incredibly disrespectful to me and my things, eats my food despite being told not to on a nearly weekly basis, and borrows things from my apartment with no intent of ever returning them. I've been at my wit's end over this for the last month, and I feel like Tammy is testing my limits more and more. I've talked to both of them, and I let them know if something doesn't change soon, I will lose my cool. But every conversation ends with Jane committing to things that never happen, and Tammy being non-committal or just disinterested in my feelings. It came to a head on Friday. Jane had gotten off work early and left Tammy alone. I came home to the place absolutely trashed. Now, this is something that I could handle, but what I could not handle was that Tammy had pulled out some of my old vinyls to listen to, and she scratched them to pieces and just left them out on the table and ground when she got bored. When I confronted her and asked her what had happened, she just shrugged her shoulders and said nothing. I absolutely lost it. I told her exactly what I thought about her, how she was selfish, ungrateful, lazy, and downright unpleasant. I made the comment that if this is how she is at home, I know why her parents don't want her in their house. I could tell she was taken off guard by my yelling, and the parents' comment caused her to start crying. I kicked her out and told her not to come back. Jane lost it and we fought. We've been pretty cool since then, but she's still talking about moving out. But at this point, I'm starting to consider that myself. Last night, however, Jane finally decided to tell me that Tammy tried to run away last year, and she made a deal with her that our apartment could be her safe space. place whenever she needed it. Also, she didn't try to run away again. I still don't feel like this makes what she did right, but at the same time, knowing this, I'm starting to feel bad. So I have to ask, am I the jerk for having an outburst at my girlfriend's little sister? If I was in your shoes, I would have wished I had known that information a lot sooner. I mean, if that really is the case, then your girlfriend needs to say that to you a lot sooner. Like, that is so disrespectful from your girlfriend. She should have said something like right away and said, hey, my sister's kind of troubled and she ran away from home, so that's kind of why I want to give her a break. But also in that same vein of thought, your girlfriend's little sister absolutely needs to learn respect. She needs to learn respect for the people who live there, as well as the property that's in that house. It is not okay for her to come in and start trashing the place, as well as destroying your personal property. There is literally no good excuse for that, troubled teenager or not. So truly, if I was in your situation, I can't say that I wouldn't blow up on her as well. She's blatantly been disrespectful to you, she's been rude and would talk back, and she's been destroying your stuff. And that's more than enough reason to say, you know what, you've got to go. Because you know what, having a safe space doesn't mean that she has the right to trash your place. And if she can't learn how to be a guest rather than a squatter, then there really is no place for Tammy to be involved. My entitled Karen friend demands to announce her pregnancy at my birthday party, but after dealing with her rude attitude, as well as her aggressive demeanor, I decided to not only deny her request, but also uninvite her from my party, after she said she was gonna do it no matter what. And now I'm being called a jerk, and I seriously don't know what to do. Lauren has always been one of those people who always wants to be in the spotlight. Lauren is not her real name. This never really bothered me, as I am quite an introverted person. Anyways, with that out of the way about Lauren, skipping to my birthday, we have been planning this party for a long time, as I have been really depressed the past couple of years, and this was my first big gathering with all my friends and family who were also there to support my recovery. I was sending out invites and was really excited. We were ordering in pizzas and fried chicken, which are my two absolute favorites. Anyways, I tell everyone in the group chat that we will be ordering this, and everyone is excited, but then Lauren messages everybody and says that she can't have that because she is vegan. She then went on to say it was disrespectful, that I wasn't being inclusive to everybody there. In private messages, she started going on about how it was really rude of me to not have asked before organizing food, and that I was discriminating against her for being a vegan. So I got really stressed out and didn't know what to do. I then said I would order her some food separately from a vegan place and that I would be willing to pay for it. She then suddenly went quiet. The day before the party, I got a message in the group chat from her saying to everybody, "Can't wait to catch up with all of you this weekend. I have some exciting news of my own I would like to share." Confused by this, I messaged her personally and asked what this was about, as I didn't quite understand as to why she had to announce it at my birthday. It also really upset me how she was texting the group chat as if she was the one who was organizing the party. We have quite a lot of mutual friends, but at the end of the day, it was my group chat, and she was treating it like it was some kind of mass gathering for her. Lauren then said she was planning on telling everybody about her pregnancy, and when she said that, I was completely shocked. Not only did I feel like she was purposefully trying to ruin my birthday, but I was even more hurt she didn't even ask me first. After all, it was my birthday party. I told her I did not want her to announce it on my birthday, and that I found it really rude of her not to ask me first. She then went off on me, starting complaining about how this was her only opportunity to do it. She said, "Everyone would be there, the timing is so perfect." She claimed that I had ruined her plan, and that I'm being a selfish and bad friend for not being happy for her. She then said to me, "I can do whatever the heck I want, and you can't stop me from announcing it." I was so stressed out that I sent her a text message uninviting her from my party, and then blocked her altogether. All day, I got calls and text messages from her family saying that I was selfish and incredibly rude, and that I was a narcissist, and that I was indeed a bad friend. They all basically called me a jerk for uninviting her, and for being mean to her as well. All these text messages made me feel really guilty, and it made me feel like a complete jerk. So now I'm at a crossroads, and I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, this Lauren person is an absolute jerk. She is seriously trying to steal your birthday party away from you, and she's trying to make it all about her. She also sounds incredibly entitled. I mean, she accused you of trying to discriminate against her just because she's a vegan. Like, honestly, that could have been handled in private. You could have messaged the original poster and said, "Hey, I can't eat meat. Is there any kind of vegan options that I can have?" And then that could have been worked out right then and there. But instead, she wants to make this big show and and tell about it, and then try to pretend like this is some kind of shot at her, when in reality, they're just trying to schedule lunch, lady, like come on. And while I know that the original poster is an introvert, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to try and be vocal about this. So truly, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, because if there's anybody that's a narcissist in this situation, it definitely is not the original poster, but instead that falls directly on Lauren's shoulders, because she's acting crazy, and the way she's treating you is completely unfair. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My sister ruined my previous marriage by sleeping around with my ex-fiance and taking away from me my future life. So now that I'm getting married again for the second time, I've decided to deny her access to coming to my wedding. And now I'm being called a jerk and I seriously don't know what to do. So my sister has a problem with the fact that I do not want her to attend my wedding. I haven't spoken to my sister properly in almost 3 years. The only contact we do keep is through our mother. My soon-to-be husband proposed to me 8 months ago after a year of dating, and in spite of past experience, I was absolutely ecstatic. About 2 months ago, I started working on writing up and sending off the invitations, which took me a couple of weeks altogether, and slowly but surely, I started to receive confirmation texts, emails, and calls. My mother called me shortly after she got her invitation and asked why my sister had not received one yet, which was mind-boggling since my mother of all people would surely understand. 3 years ago, I was preparing for my wedding. I had the venue booked, the honeymoon booked and paid for in full, as well as sorting out the entertainment. The dress, the bridesmaids' dresses, the tuxedo, and food was all paid for. Everything was sorted out and ready. I was also ready to marry the love of my life. However, 2 weeks before the wedding was set, my ex called it off with literally little to no explanation and went no contact. I was heartbroken and extremely confused. A couple of weeks later, I find out from Facebook that my sister and ex-fiance were on a trip that I had booked for our honeymoon. Anyways, I soon discovered that for 9 months, they had been sneaking around behind my back. My sister and my then fiance. Their relationship lasted less than half a year before he left her. Ever since, she has been begging for my forgiveness and insists that I need to let the past go, that she is my sister, and that this childish feud will ruin our relationship. To me, it isn't just the fact that she did what she did, but the fact that she betrayed my trust and let me rant and open up to her about things going on in my relationship, while also simultaneously stabbing me in the back. I'm not quite sure what stance my family will hold on this situation, because they generally keep out of conflict, but I need to know, am I the jerk for not wanting my sister to attend my wedding? No, you are not the jerk. Your sister literally went and spent some quality time with your ex-fiance and ruined your future marriage. She took the life you were gonna have away from you and made you waste a lot of money in the process. You had everything sorted out. You had the honeymoon booked out. You had the entertainment sorted. You had the dresses and food. Everything was sorted out. And your sister was secretly ruining all of that behind your back. So not only do I not blame you for saying, nope, you're not coming to my wedding, but also I'm surprised you're even talking to her in the first place. If someone did that to me, that would be a fast track to never being in contact with me ever again. I would just straight up ghost them. I would never consider a family member family ever again if they went behind my back and ruined my marriage. There is no good excuse for that. And seriously, she deserves to be ostracized from the family. And this is not a childish feud, and it's not something that you've done to her. It's really ironic that she's trying to flip the script. She's trying to make it seem like you did this to her, and that your behavior is the reason why there's some kind of tension in the relationship. But in reality, this literally all falls on your sister, because she essentially ruined your life. And if I was in your shoes and that had happened to me, there is no way I would ever let her attend my wedding. My boss has been awful to me for such a long time, so I decided to quit on the spot right away. And as a result, my former coworkers are now in a bad spot, and I can't help but think that maybe I'm the jerk for quitting on the spot and leaving them in a tough situation. Here's what happened. So I work in a small business with 7 employees, and 3 of which are part of the same family, including the newly appointed manager, in an at-will state, which means no notice is required to quit or to fire someone. The manager's kids are really rude, and they're incredibly bossy, and have no consequences for their actions. And since he got made manager, despite having literally 0 experience managing, things have gone downhill very fast. I put in my 2 weeks notice Sunday after his kids screwed me over by forcing me to pull a double shift, with the next 3rd shift, who isn't in the manager's family, coming in a bit early to help out, but still a 14-hour shift nonetheless. I then texted the manager, telling him that I put it in, since I wouldn't see him until Monday. Well, Monday comes and I finish my shift, and the manager comes in and starts yelling, screaming, and cursing at me. All in front of customers too, by the way, calling me worthless, useless, and a waste of time. So I told him I won't be putting my 2 weeks in, and then I quit right then and there. I think me being a pushover for the last 3 months made him think that I'd relent because he seemed genuinely shocked. I dropped off my stuff, said I'd be back in 2 days to pick up my final check, and then I left. I later got a text message from like 2 other coworkers that are not a part of that family, with one of them calling me a jerk for ruining her scheduled vacation by quitting, and the other saying that his anger shifted onto her for no reason whatsoever, and she was going to quit as well. So while I don't think I'm the jerk for quitting, am I the jerk for putting 3 other coworkers that aren't a part of my manager's family in a bad position? What should I do? You quitting and them getting bad situations is not a reflection of you in the slightest. It is a reflection of poor management. It's a reflection that maybe this small business shouldn't try to employ family members who are clearly incompetent and absolute morons. This guy has 0 managing experience, and then he tries to boss you around as if you don't know what you're doing, when in reality, this is the guy who really is worthless. This manager is a waste of space, and if I was willing to bet, they probably most likely are completely useless to this organization. It's not fair being under the thumb of some family member of the owners of a small business. Trust me, I've been there and it sucks. You can never get anything done without feeling micromanaged, and you're always constantly on edge, especially if their managing style is super aggressive, just like the guy in this story. So seriously, I don't blame you for quitting on the spot. You don't owe them a single thing. They probably would not have even let you take that 2-week notice, even if that guy didn't blow up on you Monday morning. I mean, seriously, you could do so much better than this. There is no end-all be-all of jobs. You can always find something else that's better than this garbage, because truly, nobody deserves to get treated this way. If a work environment sucks, you absolutely can change your fate, because people who act like this and treat their employees like garbage truly are massive losers in life, and they will never amount to anything other than a failing small business. My neighbor keeps trying to have me babysit their kids, despite the fact that I really don't want to do it, and now I seriously don't know what to do. So I have a neighbor whose kid is the same age as my oldest kid, and that's 7 years old, and they've been friends since they started kindergarten together 2 years ago. She, meaning the neighbor, also has her sister and her nephew living with her, as well as her husband, and her nephew is about 5 years old, about the same age as my youngest, who also will be 5 in September. They are not so well off, despite the fact that we're kind of in the same boat, but they're all working full-time jobs on different shifts from each other, so 3 adults in one house working full-time. Meanwhile, my husband is a sole income for our household, because I have a couple of health problems that cause chronic pain, so it's easier for our household if I stay at home with the kids, saving us the cost of childcare. This neighbor asked me if I could watch her son and her nephew for a few hours one day, a few weeks ago, to which I said sure, no problem. Then she asked again that same week, this time for much longer, pretty much the entire day, which meant snacks and lunch for an additional 2 children. Money has been really tight this year, so we make sure there is enough for the kids to eat well, but that's pretty much it for food in the house. I don't mind feeding the extra kids just this once though, but this is where the problems have started. Suddenly, she was bringing her son and nephew to me every single day. She never explicitly said, hey, could you watch my kids for the summer? Nor has she offered to send snacks and lunch with them, or to maybe even throw $5 or $10 my way so I can buy the extra food for them. And she started to call me late in the night, even calling me at 9:30 at night while I was out at the city's fireworks with my kids and my husband. I ignored the call last night, and I didn't pick up when she called this morning. I feel guilty, but at the same time, I never agreed to this, and days like today are why. I'm sore and I'm overtired, and it's enough just to handle my own kids on flare-up days, let alone 2 extras who are very high energy and very destructive. They've ripped the insulation off my back door. They've broken my kids' things. They are always messing with stuff I tell them not to. So am I the jerk for refusing to be a free babysitter? I know it's a jerk move to ghost her, but I'm also a high anxiety person, and I don't do well with confrontation or letting people down, even if I'm being taken advantage of. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. You have medical reasons why you can't babysit. If these people really need a babysitter, then they need to find a proper service for it. And just because you stay at home doesn't mean that you're available to try and do that. This neighbor is clearly taking taking advantage of your generosity. I mean, you're not even getting paid for taking care of those kids. And honestly, you're under no obligation to watch them. They're not your kids, and you really can say no. If I was in your shoes, I would just type up a very well-worded text message and say to her, hey, I really appreciate you bringing the kids over, but I can no longer babysit them during the day. And then you just leave it at that. That literally is the end of the conversation. Even if she asks why you can't do it anymore, you don't have to give her any kind of excuse. You don't have to talk about the chronic pain. You don't have to talk about how tight money is. None of that. You can just straight up say, no, I cannot watch them. That is a complete sentence, and that's a complete statement. Because at the end of the day, she's taking advantage of you. And honestly, that's such a really dirty thing to do. And you do not deserve to get treated like that in the slightest. My family is going on a surprise vacation right before my birthday. But even after I helped my family plan this vacation, they've decided to exclude me from this vacation altogether. And now I feel so hurt and betrayed, and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I'm turning 23 next week, and my family decided to book an international family vacation to Bali with literally 5 days notice. I was fine with it, though a little put off, as I had already started organizing things for my birthday that was coming up, but I was also super excited to be going on a vacation. So whilst my family rang me, mainly my dad ranting about how my mother and sister had bullied him into this trip by organizing it without his permission, I set to work helping to book everything. For background, I am the eldest daughter and usually do all the research for family vacations. The trip initially involved a hotel which had extremely bad reviews for mold or dirt, which my mom is sensitive to. So I spent the day messaging my dad all the hotel alternatives, whilst being made very aware that as a family of 5, as the 5th member, I was complicating bookings a lot, often requiring a 3rd room. So I rang my father and said if he absolutely had to, they could leave me behind, as I know my sister had already gone ballistic about this trip, as all her friends are in Europe. But if so, that I would appreciate if they could be home for my birthday. I made it very clear that I didn't want to sit out, and that for only 3 reasons would I be okay with being left behind. For one, if the expenses was too much, such as requiring an additional expensive room. Secondly, if logistically it was impossible, being that the holiday or hotel package couldn't fit 5 people. And for a 3rd reason, if the trip would run into my birthday. The next day, I ring my parents, and they tell me they have sorted this fantastic trip with Hilton, but that I'm not coming. Now, I was bummed, as it meant that I would be alone on my birthday, but assumed that being so late notice, it must have been impossible to include me as well. I asked them what the struggle was, and it was revealed that they didn't even try to add me. I was annoyed, but I said I would ring up the Hilton hotel and see if one room can sleep 3 people without having to share a bed. And then I found out that they have a sofa bed, which meant it was cheap and easy for me to go. And yet when I told my dad, he said it was so stressful making the original booking and that he couldn't be bothered to ring them up and get the room reservation updated. So I rang my mom, and she said that she didn't want 3 kids in a room. I am now furious with my family. I feel betrayed that they would willingly leave me alone on my birthday at such short notice and ditch our plans. I'm angry that they didn't even try, and that even when I patiently found a solution, they didn't even have the motivation to try and include me. I live out of home, and I'm constantly organizing things for my parents' birthdays, and I feel super hurt that despite being a high achiever that they constantly gloat about, I am apparently not worth the return effort, and that it is especially evil to have your daughter plan trips that you then exclude her from. So am I the jerk for getting mad? I feel exhausted, isolated, and I feel like my birthday has been completely ruined. You're not the jerk. Your parents are absolutely unreasonable. First and foremost, I would not have given them any kind of out, because it really does seem like your parents are super lazy. You basically laid out every excuse in the book, basically saying, oh, if these things don't line up, don't worry, I can always stay back. But what they heard is, oh, she's willing to stay back? Cool, let's not schedule her at all. Like they were basically given an excuse to exclude you from this vacation. So in that regard, I don't think that was a wise thing to do. But also, the fact that they don't want to try and fight for you being on this vacation is proof enough in my mind that they clearly did not care about you coming on this vacation in the slightest. But instead, they only wanted you to try and organize it and figure it out for them because, again, I really think they're just too lazy to do it. And that's unfortunate for you. You're clearly a very smart and skilled individual, and your parents just love to gloat about it. So it all really is such a shame that your father couldn't call up the Hilton Hotel and be like, wait, we need to reserve a room with a couch sofa, or something like that so that you can be involved. There's no good excuse for his behavior, and your family really is awful for doing this, so I don't blame you for getting mad in the slightest. Because I know for a fact if I put all this work in to get a vacation ready for my family, I also would be furious to be left out all of a sudden. My entitled manager mocks me for getting sick, claiming that he hasn't gotten sick in 9 years, while also demanding that I show up to work no matter what. So I decided to maliciously comply, and as a result, he got sick with my sickness and had to take an entire week off just to get better. Here's what happened. So for reference, this story takes place in around 2017, so this is definitely before COVID. I used to work in a training center for a Fortune 500 company. When class wasn't in session, the building normally only had 4 people in it: me, the boss, and 2 trainers. I called in sick 2 days in a row because I had some nasty lung infection. On the second day, the boss starts ranting at me, saying that kids these days have no discipline. I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years. I tried asking if he wanted me to get a doctor's note, but he was pretty adamant about me coming in the next day. He said that he could decide if I'm actually sick, and he can send me home if I really am. I was one of the few women working in that section of the company, less than half of everybody's age, and I felt like arguing with him was just going to be a bad idea, so I decided to maliciously comply. That morning, I decided to not pump myself full of cold medication and just go in raw. As soon as I walked in the door, the trainers looked at me and I said, "I'm very sick. You might want to give me some space." They looked at me wide-eyed, nodded their heads, and went to a different section of the building. The boss hears me coughing so hard, I'm having to actually gasp for air like I had just emerged from the depths of the ocean. He walks in and says, "Oh, you really are sick. You should go home, but I don't understand how you got this sick." He then reminds me that he hasn't taken a sick day in 9 years. So I drive home and I come back in the next day. The trainers look at me and say, "What in the world are you doing here?" So I responded by saying the boss said that if I'm actually sick, he can send me home. They just laughed and avoided my section of the building. The boss once again hears me coughing and gasping for air and comes in and dismisses me again, and this time tells me that he doesn't need more proof. I can come back when I feel better. 4 days later, Mr. I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years was indeed very sick with some nasty lung infection and was out for an entire week. So it honestly makes me think that maybe he should try to have more discipline. I cannot stand working for people like this. Here you are getting sick as a dog, and then suddenly your boss is going to be like, "Oh, I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years. First off, chances are he's probably lying. He's probably just saying that to make himself look good, when in reality, he probably has taken a sick day. I'm not saying that people don't do that. There are just some people who don't get sick. But for the rest of us who occasionally do get sick, it's completely normal and it really is just not a big deal. So with that in mind, I love the fact that he got sick and he was out for an entire week. I mean, this guy made you show up to work sick. Why does he get the luxury of staying home for an entire week? Oh, that's right, because he's the boss. All those 9 years of being dedicated and having discipline suddenly just goes out the window the second you're in power and you can make all the decisions. So good for you for getting this guy sick. He honestly deserved it, and hopefully this will teach him that it takes more than discipline to try and get better from an illness. My entitled pastor lies to the entire church and has been using church funds to sleep around with other women as well as other nefarious activities behind all of our backs. So I decided I was getting revenge. So I got all of his records together, organized everything for his wife as well as the other church leaders to see, forcing him to not only resign, but causing his wife to divorce him, as well as ruining his reputation in the process. And I've never been more satisfied to take someone down. Here's what happened. I used to be very religious. At the end of that period in my life, I became involved with a new church that was pastored by a charismatic young pastor who seemingly had everything going for him. But this guy was a greedy jerk. He was way too greedy. And as the saying goes, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. And trust me when I say this, Pastor Hog got slaughtered. My wife and I were looking for a church. An old friend invited us to a new church that was energetic and full of friends. We started attending regularly and eventually became involved with the leadership of the church. After a while, I started to become uneasy around the pastor. The way he communicated with people just rubbed me the wrong way. I slowly realized that he was a manipulator as well as a compulsive liar, quick with an overzealous compliment but slow to explain himself when issues arose. It started with little things, like lifting sermons wholesale from the internet without doing any personal research. Then, a habit of when the small church couldn't afford to pay a full-time salary, as well as being fired from every entry-level part-time job he started with no good explanation as to why. Soon enough, the sermons demanding church members give more money became more frequent. He then refused to find part-time work on his his own. This all despite the fact that he lived in a much nicer home than any of the church members. And this was gifted to him from a church member in a previous church. And he seemed to live a very comfortable life. My wife and I eventually took over the church accounting, and we were appalled by the frivolous spending and mounting credit card debt, while accruing an insane interest rate. I started to pore over the credit card statements, some going back a couple of years. It was insanity. Credit card cash withdrawals, clearly personal expenses charged to the church, $200 for a massage on Christmas Eve. I mean, why is he putting his wife's last-minute Christmas gifts on the church card? And then one day I fired up the church computer and a messenger app popped up. 2 clicks and I was confronted with messages to women in which he propositioned them to come meet him in his super legitimate business office in a shiny high-rise. And their meeting was a little bit more than cordial, as they spent some serious quality time together, if you know what I mean. But when I confronted him about this mess, things really popped off from there, as this guy turned out to be the biggest weirdo I've ever met in my life. I eventually confronted him about the messages and he fessed up, admitting he sent the messages and had never done it before, and it was a mere lapse in his discretion. He said he would cut it out, no big deal, and I just believed him, and I didn't tell anyone. Well, a few months later, a young unmarried musician in the church became pregnant. He made a huge spectacle about it and kicked her out. It turns out, in his opinion, we couldn't have the blight of this specific sin on display at his church. The petty lies turned into more elaborate lies, mostly about how church money was spent, but also what he was doing with all of his time. Things were out of hand. I sat down with him and his wife to go through the credit card statements line by line, just to work out which charges the church would pay. I said to him, "We can't pay for a Christmas massage for your wife." And that's when his wife said, "What? He didn't give me any massage. We can't afford that." Fast forward, and again, one Sunday morning, I fired up the church computer and I noticed that all the internet history had been wiped. I became suspicious, and after a discussion with a couple church leaders, I began monitoring traffic on the computer, which was church property, by the way. Since he was an employee of the church had the right to monitor the computer. Within a matter of days, it became apparent that he was cruising the net just to look for ladies of the night, if you know what I mean. To his credit, it seemed like he was looking for someone who would give a discount. He had a church-provided cell phone, and I had access to the account. A quick check confirmed a pattern. He hits one of these ladies of the night's ads, a phone call to the corresponding number, it's just a 1-minute call, and then another ad, another number, and another minute. He would repeat this pattern over and over again, and then there would be no calls for a day or two. In the course of 7 days, there were 4 distinct episodes following the same pattern. Looking at the past phone records, I was able to work out that he had been doing it for years. And this is right about the time when I caught him trying to pretend to be some kind of successful businessman on messenger apps. This guy lied right to my face. He played me for a fool and I swallowed it whole. I felt like a total idiot. I checked up on him during work hours and he wasn't in the church office. He wasn't at home with his wife, and she said that he was at church, but that definitely wasn't true either. This guy guilted a bunch of people who looked up to him into giving him more money while then turning around to spend that money on ladies of the night. He kicked out some pregnant teenager because he didn't want that sin on display. All the while he's spending quality time with other women while parading around like some business mogul, with a cherry on top of getting a secret massage on Christmas Eve, just to then put it on the Christmas credit card. All of that wrapped together truly was unforgivable for me. I brought together all the records I could get my hands on, and I organized them all. Excel spreadsheets with times and phone numbers, printouts of the ads complete with full color pictures, lists of suspicious credit card charges, and I color coordinated everything. It was an unimpeachable record that the slipperiest of liars would not be able to explain away. I contacted the church leaders and shared what I found. We called a meeting and confronted him. He immediately went into damage control. He resigned on the spot and begged us not to tell his wife or anyone else. Well, that was absolutely not going to happen. I sent my masterpiece to his wife and walked her through it. Anytime he fed her a lie, I set her straight up with raw data. She kicked him out, filed for divorce, and left the state. The church disbanded, and he disappeared, eventually filing for bankruptcy. And I haven't been to church since. I still Google his name from time to time. After a couple of years, I got a hit about him working at some low levels in some church. Every time I would check, he would be at a different church. I've been tempted to dust off my folder of destruction, but I figure he's been through enough. Wow, that's honestly crazy to me. People really put their trust in church leaders, and they really look to them for like solace and other aspects of their lives. So the fact that this pastor would betray the trust of their entire church, not only to use church funds however they want, but also to literally sleep around and cheat on their wife, all under the guise of being this holy elderly person is, in my opinion, so hypocritical and so awful. Like, why would you blow up your family and ruin your reputation while also masquerading as something that you're not? Like, seriously, this guy needs to change lines of work, because being a pastor or some kind of church leader and doing stuff like that is unacceptable, and it shows that he's absolutely not practicing what he's preaching. And it's also hugely ironic that this guy kicked out the young lady who was pregnant, while he himself has done much worse. So good for the original poster for taking this guy down. He seriously had it coming, and the way he was acting was so inappropriate. And if it wasn't for the original poster, this guy very likely could still be getting away with this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My new army captain that was over my section tried to make my life a living nightmare, but as a result of trying to boss me around and make me abandon my post, she ends up getting relieved from duty and completely ruins her career. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I used to be an armorer in the US Army. Basically, I was the person in charge of securing and maintaining all the weapons. I was stationed overseas at a base that only had one arms room, and I was the guy who ran it. So instead of just being responsible for the weapons in my unit, I was responsible for all the weapons in the entire post. On paper, that's a job that's supposed to be done by an E6 with a 2-person support staff. In reality, the position was chronically short-staffed. It was just me as an E4 doing the job of 3 people. Because the position was critical to the operations of a bunch of different units, including things like special forces, where everything about them is classified by default, and joint operations with the Navy and Air Force, and a few foreign militaries who were working with the United States, I had to get a security clearance that was higher than everyone else in my unit. As far as I knew, there were only 4 other people on the post with clearance high enough to do what I did, and they were all officers too, by the way. This led to some amusing situations where I was accidentally called for security briefings that were way above my pay grade. That sucked because I was on call all the time, and I had to go to work anytime anyone needed a weapon. Being on call was supposed to be a duty rotation, but I was the only one who could do it, so I slept in the arms room a lot. I wanted to make sure I had as little to do as possible, so I got very good at my job. How good, you might ask? During an army-wide review of the entire supply chain, my post was found to be the best-run arms room in the entire army. I won a medal and everything for that. Then we had a change in command, and the new captain hated that I didn't have to go to training exercises because I wasn't allowed to be more than 30 minutes away from the arms room ever. Well, the new captain was absolutely determined to take me on a training mission. She had somehow gotten into her head that I was a slacker, which I absolutely was, but only because I was efficient, and I was ticked off that I never got to leave the base. So she drew up a bunch of paperwork to sign the arms room over to the supply sergeant. I refused to sign it. Next, she tried to sign the arms room over to the company commander, but I refused to sign because that commander had become a friend of mine, so I knew he was required to leave the base weekly for security briefings. Finally, she tried to sign the arms room over to our company supply lieutenant. I tried to explain that the lieutenant doesn't have high enough clearance, but she just cut me off. She said she was tired of my excuses. Then she ordered me to sign and threatened me with an Article 15. I wrote under duress on the paperwork. She didn't even look at the signature. So I sent an email to the warrant officer who was in charge of logistics for the area, and he was the guy who had given me the award I mentioned earlier. So he was especially angry when he found out what was going on. I then went on this awful little weekend training exercise and basically enjoyed my vacation. That sequence of events happened on Friday afternoon. The chief didn't get my email until Monday morning. Well, as you probably can guess, on Monday afternoon, my captain was relieved of command. I eventually had to testify at her disciplinary hearing. My second favorite part of the whole experience was the supply lieutenant, who got a slap on the wrist, by the way, for inadvertently obeying illegal orders because he hadn't learned the regulations before signing. He said, "Is it like that for you all the time? This has to change." But my favorite part overall of this entire situation was the full bird colonel in charge of the hearing asking my former commander the following: "Your soldier was awarded for being the best at his job in the entire army. After he refused your orders the first few times, why didn't you start asking questions?" So overall, it was really satisfying to see her get exactly what she deserved. How awful is that? Imagine trying to do your job exactly as it's described, and then someone comes in and says, "No, you're just lazy." She was probably really jealous that this guy didn't leave the base, and he wasn't going on any of these training exercises, which I can imagine are probably really strenuous, and they're probably really complicated. So she thought she was picking an easy target and tried to force him to come along. But honestly, in the end, she got exactly what she deserved, because the way she was acting was incredibly inappropriate, and no one deserves to get treated like that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for taking my little cousin out with me and my friend after nobody attended his birthday party? Here's what happened. So I'm a 16-year-old male, and I had plans to hang out at an arcade with my friend by the name of Alex. Alex is not his real name. And this was all supposed to happen at 2:00 p.m. Meanwhile, my 7-year-old cousin's birthday party was scheduled from 12 o'clock to 5:30. While we waited for my hangout time with Alex, I decided to help my aunt with the preparation, especially with a cake and cupcakes and setting up the snacks on the table. But honestly, the best part was spending time with my adorable little cousin. We were both super hyped up for his party, but the fact that absolutely nobody showed up to his party is insane. We waited for an entire hour, and all the decorations, treats, and snacks were just sitting there untouched. Seeing him overwhelmed with negative emotions made me incredibly sad. I didn't want this day to be ruined for him, so I took matters into my own hands and called up Alex and asked if we could go to the arcade earlier and bring my cousin along with us. We had an amazing time there, and he ended up feeling so much better. When we returned home with my cousin though, my mom and aunt were yelling at me, claiming that I messed up. They insisted that my cousin would have had a better time with family. Look, I get it. We would have spent some family time together, but in that moment, all I wanted was to ensure that my cousin's special day wasn't completely ruined. He had an absolute blast at the arcade, and I genuinely don't see how I'm the one in the wrong here. I mean, my cousin doesn't even have many friends, and he only invited people he felt comfortable with, including some of his supposed best friends. So you can imagine just how heartbroken he was when no one showed up. So am I the jerk here? Did I actually mess up by making my cousin tag along with me and my friend? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your cousin's birthday party completely blew up in his face, and he had nobody show up to his birthday party. Like, that must be an awful feeling, especially for a 7-year-old. So the fact that you had the insight to be like, okay, come with me to the arcade with my friend, let's go have some fun. That, in my opinion, was a really good move. It shows that you really care about your cousin, and you really wanted him to have a good birthday. The original poster goes on to say that yes, they asked an adult before they took their cousin with them, and they asked their mom, who also told the aunt. So it's not like they weren't aware that this cousin was going with the original poster, but it's so weird that they switched it up as soon as they got back. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your family is being weird for literally no reason, and you did this kid a favor because his birthday party felt like a lead balloon, and you made what would have been an awful day a little bit better just by inviting him to come along. My sister demands that my husband and I pay $22,000 towards her wedding, claiming that simply because we have the money, we should then just give her the money so that she can have a wedding that she likes. But my husband and I refused, and now she, as well as the rest of the family and friends, are all calling us bad people, and I'm honestly now not sure what to do. To start things off, I'll say that my parents are already offering to chip in for her. They didn't chip in for me, even though they offered, and I rejected them, as my husband paid for the entire thing. He's very wealthy, and so are his side of the family, so it was a very big, extravagant wedding. My sister was one of my bridesmaids, and I paid for her bridesmaid dress and paid for everything. I spent hours organizing my wedding and spent a lot of money and organization to make it the best day ever. My sister helped with my weekend with organization, but not financially. My best friend and the maid of honor helped me the most with everything. Anyways, my sister now is getting married, and she wants my husband to pay for it. It's going to be $22,000 that she wants us to pay for. We told her that that's ridiculous, and she would have to try and pay for her own wedding or get our parents to help out. She then got angry at me, saying that my wedding was 1,000 times more expensive, and that I had the money and wasn't being fair for her. Her friends and her husband have been saying that we were snobby and that we were treating them badly, and we won't pay for anything towards their wedding when my sister helped out so much with mine. I've even gotten messages from some of her friends calling me an awful person. Someone even said that apparently she married her husband for the right reasons and not for money, which really upset me. I don't know if there was anything I could do or if I'm in the wrong for refusing that. What should I do? First off, if you haven't done it already, I would block the friends that are messaging you. Those people are idiots and they really need to mind their own business. Also, your sister is being really obnoxious here. Who just walks up to their sibling and says, okay, I need $22,000, and by the way, if you don't do it, I'm gonna slander your name to the rest of the family. Like, seriously, what are you doing? That's a lot of money no matter who you are, even if you do have that kind of money. Like, what kind of nerve does this lady have to seriously walk up to your husband and demand $22,000? If she really wanted to ask for money, at least ask for something smaller than that. Because at the end of the day, it's her wedding. Why on earth should you be forced to pay for her wedding when she didn't even help out financially with yours? Yeah, she helped out by organizing stuff, but literally anybody can do that. If we're looking at this logistically, she didn't do anything for your wedding. That is honestly, in my opinion, way too much money. And the fact that she would try to spring this on you and act like this is going to be your fault if you can't pony up the money honestly shows her true colors. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your sister really does sound incredibly entitled, and just because your husband's rich doesn't mean that you two have to finance her wedding. My fiance is banned from every major bank and payment processor, but tells me it's because of a conspiracy against him. And now I'm at a place where I seriously don't know what to do. My fiance works from home, and he has always been very secretive regarding his finances. He has repeatedly told me that it's not my place to know how he makes his money, but he has briefly mentioned that it apparently relates to cryptocurrency. Needless to say, he makes a lot of money doing just this. One of the main reasons that I've been trying to get him to be more honest with me about his finances is that I found out that he is banned from quite literally every major bank and every major payment processor. It's so bad to the point where 3 months ago, he tried to open a personal checking account with a small local bank, and they at first allowed him to do it, but then they closed his account after the first week for the reason that my fiance still won't tell me. The whole situation was a mess because he had something like $600,000 in that account, and they had to investigate the funds for over 3 months before they were finally released last Friday. This situation was kind of my breaking point regarding his financial secrecy. I told him that I needed him to be more honest with me regarding his finances, especially since we're going to be getting married in 2 months. He told me some disturbing things that sound like delusional conspiracies that you might hear online. Basically, he said it was the deep state and the elite who control the global banking system, and they are apparently out to get him because he's in the process of exposing them to the world. When he was saying these things, I was waiting for him to tell me that he was joking, but he never did. And when he was done talking, I just stared at him. Here's the thing, my fiance is not some crazy internet supporter of these theories, and I can list so many things that are absolutely great about him. He is someone I want to be with forever, and I have never felt this in love with anyone before, but this rapidly devolving situation is breaking my mind. I keep asking myself how this will work once we're married, and if he will ever finally become fully open with me once we're married, since perhaps he will trust me more then. What should I do? This is a major red flag in my opinion. First off, the original poster went on to say that they've both known each other for 8 months, and they've been engaged for 2 months overall. And that honestly just sounds super sketchy. It doesn't sound like he's being totally honest with you, and it seems like he's intentionally leaving out some details that would be really important for you to know. Like, where is he getting this money from? Sure, he says it's from cryptocurrency, but why can he not make a bank account? Like, seriously, what is going on? If I was in your shoes, there's no way I would marry him unless I knew this financial information up front first and foremost. And also, this talk about the deep state and the global elite being after him or something like that is seriously crazy to me. So hopefully you can figure this one out, because this guy is being super sketchy, and you have a right to know exactly what's going on well before you get married. A group of entitled Karens make a Subway worker's life a living nightmare, and after watching them scream at this Subway worker who was making their sandwiches for over 15 minutes, I decided that enough was enough, so I decided to get some revenge. Here's what happened. On a day I was off work, I was craving a sandwich at lunchtime on a hot day. I traveled to the nearest Subway and I got in line. As it was noontime, there were quite a few people in line, and as many places are kind of in the same boat, they seemed understaffed. And I totally get that the store is doing the best that they can. There was one young teenage girl who was making all the sandwiches, while a manager was ringing up the orders when not helping with condiments. So while waiting in line at Subway with 6 other people, I was behind a group of 3 older ladies, who are the Karens of this story. While not the complete spitting image of most Karens, you could tell from how they talked with each other that they were the kind of person with resting jerk face, if you know what I mean. So it came time to have their sandwiches made. And of course, every one of them wanted a very custom sandwich. They wanted this specific meat, but they wanted a little bit more cheese put on it. They wanted it toasted, but not too much. And then halfway through their order, they wanted to switch bread. They went on and on doing this. It was incredibly annoying, as the one girl tried to keep up, but was getting frustrated and stressed out. Then the manager stepped over, trying to help out. But with these entitled Karens, they were not happy with anything. After 15 minutes of making each of these ladies sandwiches, it finally came time to pay up. Down to the register they went as my meatball sub was quickly made and passed down. I ordered plain bread, some meat and sauce, and a little bit of ranch. So I just waited behind them. The manager rang up the old bats, and when the total came out to be around $30, they absolutely exploded. They started to say, "We waited forever to be served, and then you two couldn't even make a sandwich. We want it for free." They whined and screamed over and over again. I eventually got fed up, and after listening to this for a few minutes, I stepped up and said, "Listen, I'll take the sandwiches. Add them to my order." The old crows grinned and thought that they had won, so I went ahead and paid for the 4 sandwiches and added my drinks and chips. After my card was approved and I was handed my receipt, I picked up my 4 newly bought sandwiches and I got my drink. Now, as I started paying, these entitled Karens went to go sit at a table. After getting my drink, I headed to the door to leave with my food in my hand, and it's right then that my plan for revenge started to fall into place. One of the entitled Karens spoke up and said, excuse me, you still have our food. Are you not gonna bring it to us?" Receipt in hand, holding it up, I said to them, "Nope, I paid my money for my food, and I'm gonna take it back with me to work." And then I started heading to the door. This crazy old entitled Karen gets up and begins to chase me out the door, which I honestly didn't mind. The staff had enough of them, and I can happily deal with some crazy person. She said to me, "You need to give us our food or we will call the cops and have you arrested." So I said, "Please be my guest. I assure you they won't be doing anything about this." One of them then started to pull out a phone and call while the others began telling me how I must love stealing from old ladies and how they knew this person or that person and that I was going to be in jail for a long time. Well, they called. I stood there not saying a word, which is hard to do being belittled, but I had the store basically watching outside at this point. Soon enough, a few units pulled in, and as they got out and approached me, a look of confusion crossed their face. Once they confirmed that I was the guy they were calling about, they said to me, "Well, apparently you stole their sandwiches and demanded money from them." So I said to them, "Well, look into it. Ask the clerk and manager who paid for the sandwiches, and take a look at this receipt." One officer walked in and spoke with the store, while the other listened to these women insinuate that I took the food from them. The shock was priceless once the other one came out and confirmed that I paid for them, and the store also wanted the 3 trespass for disturbance. And while I was released to go ahead and leave, I decided to go back in and eat my food. At the end of it all, the 3 were banned from the store and left with an even more sour look on their face, and I've honestly never been happier to watch 3 Karens get put in their place. That's a really funny way of getting back at a Karen. I would have never thought to buy someone's food and then walk out with it and be like, "What do you want? I bought your food. Your food is mine and I'm taking it with me." Like, that really is funny in my opinion. I mean, I don't know about you, but standing in line at Subway and waiting for someone to figure their order out, or at least watching them boss around the person who's making the sandwich, is incredibly disturbing and so weird. Like, seriously, you're going to Subway. If you wanted something that was like super high quality, as well as something that's going to be detailed exactly the way you want it, then you should probably just go to the store and get the material and make a sandwich yourself. So it's genius that the original poster stepped in and literally just took their meal from them. That's incredibly funny. But also, it's even better that these Karens got banned from the store. And honestly, they really had that coming, because the way they were acting was super inappropriate, and they absolutely deserve to have that happen. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. 2 entitled parents leave their child at a church for free babysitting, not coming back for 5 hours, and causing us a lot of worry and a lot of panic. Here's what happened. So I was working at a very large church that has about 2,000 members, and on Sundays I ran the audio and video booth. We had 3 services: a 7 o'clock early morning service, the main service at 10 o'clock, and a late service at 11:30. Each service ran about an hour and 15 minutes. One Sunday during the 10 a.m. service, the pastor's wife went into labor 3 weeks early. The pastor left in the middle of his sermon, and the youth pastor took over. The youth pastor did a great job of taking over and wishing the mother and baby well, with service wrapping up early. We had a quick meeting to decide what to do about the 11:30 service, and the youth pastor volunteered to give a sermon that he prepared for the youth group later in the week. It was his first time giving a sermon in front of that many people up on the big stage. He was nervous and rolled through it pretty quickly, then forgot about the closing songs, so church ended at about 12:15 instead of the normal 12:45. Everyone had cleared out of the church by 12:30. I shut down all the equipment and turned out the lights, and went down the hall to make sure the lights were out in the classrooms, just like I normally did. One light was on, and that's when I found Sarah, who is another church employee who worked in the nursery on Sundays. Sarah is not her real name. She was sitting in a rocking chair rocking a toddler, and I saw tears rolling down Sarah's face. I asked her what was wrong, and she could hardly speak. She was so upset. She said the toddler's parents had dropped him off before the early service, and they never came back. The poor baby had been there for almost 5 hours. The parents parents had not given a contact number. All Sarah knew was the child's first name. I immediately called the youth pastor, who quickly turned around and came back to the church. The child was very out of sorts, either hungry or tired. We had snacks, but no food, and there wasn't really a place for the kid to sit down and have a nap. I ran to get some chicken nuggets while they figured out what to do. When I got back, a couple had pulled in right in front of me. They asked where everyone was, and I said the church had ended early. They said, "Okay, we're just here to pick up our son." I wasn't about to get involved with a drama, so I just unlocked the door and I let them in. The youth pastor was livid and lit into them. It turns out the parents wanted some alone time and had been dropping their kid off at church and then leaving to go do some stuff. They had been doing this for weeks, dropping him off at about 7:45 a.m. and then coming to pick him up at about 12:45 p.m. Here's the part where the parents are really entitled. They got mad at the youth pastor for ending church early. They yelled at him for endangering their child and threatened to sue. The dad was up in the youth pastor's face, and I thought that they might start fighting, but the youth pastor was a big dude, and I think that kept the dad from doing anything else. I didn't stay in there. I went into the next room with Sarah and the child, and I gave him the chicken nuggets, which he gulped down. The parents finally took the kid and left. The youth pastor and his wife took us to lunch because we were still upset by the whole thing. I think about that kid a lot, and I just hope that the parents treat that kid right. Those parents are super irresponsible. First off, you can't just leave your kid like that for 5 hours and then get up in this other guy's face and be like, "Wow, you ended church early." Like, are you kidding me? This is not a babysitting service. Those parents are not only entitled, but they are clearly completely clueless about taking care of their kid. If anyone's endangering that kid, it's those parents. So honestly, good on the youth pastor for standing up and not taking that garbage for a second. Those parents were awful, and hopefully nothing like that ever happens again. Am I the jerk for not including another student in my free time activities, even though they complain every time I do include them? Here's what happened. So I'm a master's student from the United States conducting capstone fieldwork in Africa. Jane is another student from my program in the same country, different city, and about an hour's drive away. John is an undergrad who is also here, living in the same guest house as me and working for the same host organization. John and Jane are not their real names. We all share an academic advisor at our university, hence all of us going to the same country to conduct work. I don't see Jane often, and we aren't close friends, so we don't communicate much. I ride to and from work every day with John, but that is about the extent of our interactions, because he and I have next to nothing in common. I'm into mountain climbing, whitewater rafting, and sports. I like going for runs in the morning and trying new foods, and I am fairly sociable, so I have made friends at the host organization. John, on the other hand, is not athletically inclined whatsoever, and has seriously struggled whenever I tried to include him in my free time activities. He complained to our advisor that he didn't feel safe when accompanying me on said activities, but never once raised those opinions to me directly. He doesn't like trying new food, and is conversationally challenged when it comes to talking with people here. Following the incident with him complaining to the advisor about my disregard for his safety, I stopped trying to include him in my free time activities. He then also complained to my advisor that I was excluding him and preventing him from bonding with the host organization. I play church league soccer with one of our coworkers, so we've become close through that. I don't think he's found any inroads to make friends such as this. Recently, my advisor and Jane separately expressed their dissatisfaction with my lack of effort to include John. I know John communicates with them more than I do, so that's how they're aware. They said as peers from the same university, I should be making sure he gets along better and including him in my activities. I respectfully disagreed and said it wasn't my responsibility to make sure some kid is having fun, especially after he complained when I did include him. Jane said I was being a jerk, and the advisor said I need to be more inclusive and a better role model for John. So what do you think? Am I the jerk for refusing to care? What should I do? Jane and the advisor are completely wrong here. John is being antisocial. If you try to include him in stuff, he complains about his safety. But if you decide not to invite him, he then complains that you're not including him. So honestly, when it comes to John, what do you want? If you want to be included in the stuff I'm doing and feel like you're getting to know the host organization, then guess what? We're going to be doing stuff that requires athleticism. And if you don't have that and you don't want to be involved, you don't then have the right to turn around and start complaining about it. Like, that just seems incredibly petty. And I would personally explain that to all the people complaining to you. And I'm right there with you. You are not responsible for this grown adult as well as their experience while you're studying. You've tried to include John. You've literally gone out of your way to be like, hey, come along with me. Let's go try and do this fun thing or whatever. But John is literally being a stick in the mud boyfriend, and he's being no fun for you or anyone else. So I seriously would not worry about this in the slightest, because in my opinion, you are absolutely not the jerk. I am starting to feel frustrated or resentful that my boyfriend won't move out on his own, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend is very hesitant to move out of his family's home. We have been together a little under a year and have known each other for about 4 years. From 2021 till now, I have moved out of a toxic home situation and have been paying my own bills and trying to take care of myself and my health. When I first moved out, I was making around minimum wage, and this is all with a bachelor's degree, and live about 20 minutes from one of the most dangerous cities in America. My boyfriend has a great career in technology. He has a pretty hefty salary and does not pay rent at home. It sounds great, but his family doesn't allow much autonomy and boundaries. They aren't super awful like my parents were, but it seems there is an enmeshment. His brother also moved back home with his family of 5, which makes things a lot worse. One of his brother's children is also very autistic and has behavioral issues. And then there is the daughter of the girlfriend who is 15 years old. They all live in the downstairs basement. His brother and their family have been there for a while, and my boyfriend's quality of life has seemed to go downhill. His mental health hasn't been the best, and he hasn't been able to keep his routine and have his space. My boyfriend also says he is still in his twin bed and doesn't have much space in his room anymore for things that he wants. We did look at possible apartments for him to live in. We went on many tours and had a lot of information, and he eventually backed out. At first, he said he's anticipating possible expenses and wants to save a year's worth of salary, which is about $84,000. Then he said he wasn't sure when he would move out, and just the other night, he said that he needs to be a good example for his little nephews who are 3 and 5 years old. This is actually my first time hearing this. He said he needs to be there because his brother and the children's mother are not protective in getting the autistic child his needs. While I do understand that, I let him know he needs better boundaries with his family, and they will use him if he is not careful. I don't want to be too pushy, but does this look like a red flag to anybody else? My therapist told me today to focus on myself and things I need to do and give it at least 6 months to check in and see if the relationship is headed in the right direction, and to see if he is serious about what he's gonna do. I'm in graduate school, so there's no rush to be married or anything like that, but I can't imagine being 2 years with a man who isn't making the effort to change his situation. What should I do? Honestly, it kind of seems like your therapist has a good head on your shoulders, and I also think there's a lot of nuance involved with this situation. I think face value obviously makes it seem like he's still living at home, and it may seem like he doesn't want to move out because there's no rent to pay while he's at home, but I kind of get the sense that there's more going on here than anybody realizes. I mean, there are a lot of people living in that house, and it kind of makes me think that maybe there's something going on that he's not really willing to tell you about. Maybe he really is trying to look out for the children of that house, and him leaving would probably cause some kind of problem. I think regardless, it wouldn't be a bad idea to worry about yourself for this time. There's clearly something going on that maybe he hasn't fully told you about, and that's the reason why he's choosing to stay in that home. But either way, hopefully this works out for you as well as your boyfriend, because this really does sound like a tricky situation, and hopefully with some time and a little bit of money saved up, things can change for the better. Am I the jerk for wanting to sleep alone in the spare bedroom? Here's what happened. So I've been dating my girlfriend for the past 3 years. The relationship has been going great, and I love how amazing she is, but lately I've been tired. We decided to move into a new apartment 2 months ago, and I also took a new job. The new job has been a bit stressful compared to my last job. Luckily, I am still getting time for my personal hobbies, like going to the gym or going out with my girlfriend. Now, the problem I want to talk about is my lack of sleep. I've been sleeping alone since I was 15 years old, and now sleeping with someone else is kind of bothering me. I am used to the peace of sleeping alone. My girlfriend likes to sleep with a fan on, takes up too much space in the bed, and most importantly, she snores sometimes, which ruins my sleep completely. She also has no concern for my sleep, as she wakes up before me and either switches on lights or makes noises. I am used to sleeping 7 to 8 hours a day, but for the past few months, I have been sleeping only 4 to 5 hours because of this. So finally, I got frustrated, and I confronted her about this. I know my girlfriend can't change in a day, so I proposed I will just sleep in the other room peacefully. When I said this, she got upset and was furious about this suggestion. She believes sleeping together is a sign of love between a couple, and that she likes cuddling or sleeping on top of me, and says I should just get used to it. She now thinks that I don't find her attractive, but that just isn't true at all. I love my girlfriend, but all I want is a peaceful good night's sleep. So am I the jerk for wanting to sleep alone in a spare bedroom? What should I do? Honestly, there's nothing wrong with wanting to sleep in a spare bedroom just to try and get some kind of sleep. sleep. It doesn't mean you don't like your girlfriend. Obviously, you do love her. You wouldn't be with her if you didn't like her in the first place. So that argument of saying, oh no, you don't want to sleep in the same bed as me, oh, you must hate me, that in my opinion is just ridiculous. She clearly doesn't understand this from your perspective, and clearly she's seeing this just from what she wants. And if you can't sleep with another person in the bed, then maybe it's time to make a change. So hopefully she can try and see where you're coming from, because based on what you've described, it really doesn't sound like you're being irrational. And if anything, it kind of seems like your girlfriend is being a bit selfish. My girlfriend is absolutely terrible with her money, and I am now nervous about our future, and I seriously don't know what to do. So my girlfriend and I have been together for a year. I'm a 22-year-old male and she is 21 years old. I have been trying to save up as much as humanly possible to try and save up for a house. I was in the military and was stashing around 33% of each paycheck into savings, as well as meticulously budgeting, watching my Rocket Money account, NerdWallet account, etc. I'm decently frugal, but I do also love to spend some of my money here and there on random things, whether it's a new Xbox game or a new part for my Harley, etc. My girlfriend at 17 bought a $30,000 car with $2,000 down payment and proceeded to be underwater on the loan 2 years later when the value of the car dipped beneath what her loan was. She frequents Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks almost every single day. She always goes to Target on shopping sprees, while always eating out, and gets her hair done every 2 months, which averages to about $600 to $1,000. All of this on top of her $600 car payment. Needless to say, she hardly puts any money away, and this is all off of a $2,500 monthly salary. She is going to be trading her car in for another one, which will essentially help her break even on her current car, and taking another $30,000 loan with no money down towards this new vehicle, all while making less since she'll be going back to school part-time. I asked her what the APR for her loan was, and she stated she didn't even know. All of these expenses on top of just shy of $100,000 in student loans. She gets upset that I'm concerned and get on her about her money, but I'm only doing it because I don't want her trapped in endless debt at such a young age, especially when we are looking to move out soon. So right now, I'm honestly not sure how to go about fixing this, and I seriously don't know what to do. First and foremost, I think it's important to know that obviously you guys fall on different spectrums when it comes to how you spend your money. Obviously, you try to be as frugal as possible. I mean, at one point, you were stashing away 33% of your paychecks every single time and just throwing it into savings, trying to save up so you can buy a house someday. And that honestly is a really smart move in my opinion. It's wise to think about the money you're gonna need for your future, and you clearly have a good head on your shoulders in that regard. But your girlfriend is obviously much different. She seems to make money disappear on stuff that probably shouldn't be bought. Now don't get me wrong, people can buy stuff, and they should be able to buy whatever they want, whether it's clothes or eating food or whatever it might be. Those are luxury items that if you can afford it, it's totally fine. But going overboard and being frivolous with your spending, that in my opinion can be a massive red flag. It's not only really dangerous financially, but it's also not fair for your partner. I mean, it really seems like the original poster's trying to make a future for them. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like his girlfriend is on the same page at all. And that is something that definitely needs to change. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would sit down and have a talk with her. It's time to set out what your financial goals are between the two of you. I mean, if you do plan on spending the rest of your life with her, even though it is really early to be thinking about that kind of stuff, you need to consider the financial aspect in my opinion. That is such an important aspect to this, because hypothetically, you could combine your money at some point, and then suddenly your money is going to become her money. And if she is needlessly spending and taking on loans that she's clearly not ready for, this really could spell disaster. So hopefully you can find some kind of middle ground when it comes to spending money, because the way she's doing it right now seems really reckless. And if you're not careful, this could really be damaging in the future. My entitled brother and sister-in-law are intentionally ruining their daughter's financial future by taking out student loans in her name and spending it frivolously on cars and other things. And I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. My brother and sister are extremely irresponsible with money to the point where they have already been bankrupt twice, and they are working on number 3 right now. It just hasn't been enough years yet since the last time. They both owe over $150,000 in student loans, as well as credit cards. Plus, they owe more on their home than it's worth because they take out every cent of equity they gain immediately, saying they are going to pay off debt with it, but blow it on more impulsive luxury buys. They have 3 children. The oldest is 18 and in college. I just found out that they took out massive student loans in the kid's name exclusively, way beyond what was necessary, and they blew it on themselves. They already scammed the kid out of a life savings last last summer, buying her a car, but they pulled a switch on her by purchasing a manual transmission that she doesn't know how to drive. I know they did it on purpose because my brother wanted the new car for himself and said it was a fair trade to give her the old beat-up ugly minivan instead, but didn't give her the money she put up for the new car back. The in-laws set up a college fund for her as a small child, and every holiday, instead of gifts, money was put into that account. When it came time to use the money, she discovered it was all gone. They spent it all behind her back, and she had no idea until she needed it and found out. I just found out that they got her deep into student loan debt, way beyond what she needed, and she hasn't even started her second year yet. They thought Biden was going to forgive the $20,000, so they went and blew through it thinking that it was free money. This poor kid has no idea the magnitude of what they have done to her long term. They screwed up their own lives and finances beyond repair and just couldn't resist taking advantage of their own kid by putting her deep in the hole where she will never be able to pay it off or will be trying for the rest of her life. The career path she is pursuing is not a high-earning job, so she is already going to struggle supporting herself on her own after college. I don't think she knows how much debt is being racked up in her name, and if she decides to quit school or choose another path, she will be stuck with a huge payment regardless. Tuition is super cheap as she stayed in state, so they could have easily paid out of pocket and avoided putting her into the same situation they are in. I am disgusted at the level of entitlement that they have to literally rob their own children out of every cent she had, which wasn't much to begin with, then proceeded to sentence her to massive debt on top of it for life, just so they can keep spending frivolously on everything, from eating out every meal to new tech gadgets to taking trips and then having 2 cars for themselves, as well as clothes and home decor. They also owe my parents tens of thousands of dollars for all the bailouts to save their house from foreclosure, which has happened several times. It would take all day to go over all the rotten, greedy, entitled things they do, but screwing over your own kid is next level. And the worst part about it is they have 2 other kids that they can easily take advantage of. I have discussed this with my elderly parents who are owed the tens of thousands of dollars, and they haven't seen a penny. They paid the down payment on their house, and they bailed them out several times, paying for their mortgage payments just so they wouldn't get foreclosed. Honestly, it's only a matter of time before they start taking out credit cards in their kids' names, or who knows what. This is all just so entirely awful, and I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, this is actually insane, because it really does sound like these parents are committing identity theft. Like they are straight up stealing their daughter's identity and using the student loans to buy whatever they want. Like that is insane to me. I mean, at one point they were even thinking, oh, the president's gonna forgive $20,000. This is just free money, let's go for it. Meanwhile, this kid has literally no idea the mountain of debt they're gonna have to deal with. It's probably gonna be twice as much as what they would normally think. Like these parents are seriously messed up. This is really gonna ruin this kid's life, and that's not fair at all. So my first thought is, well, hopefully this kid is aware of what's happening to her. I mean, I really hope she's not going through her college career thinking to herself that nothing nefarious is going on behind the scenes. And hopefully she's aware of what her parents are doing to her. And if not, then man, someone has to tell her, because this is seriously bad. This is so bad, this could very easily end up in a court case. And personally, I would really want her to know that, yeah, your parents are basically ruining your life. I can say for certain if I was in that situation and I knew that my parents were ruining my financial future, I would probably lawyer up. Like there's no way I'm gonna take that sitting down. They're literally giving her tens of thousands of dollars of extra debt. Like college is already expensive enough, but to nearly double that is insane to me. So hopefully everything works out for your niece, because from the sounds of it, her parents are absolutely awful, and she does not deserve the mountain of debt that she is probably going to have to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My entitled roommate is a complete slob and chooses to play video games all day every day instead of getting up and getting a job and contributing to the house. And at this point, I'm so frustrated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we are both 24 years old, living in a foreign country to save up and build a future. I lived alone, but recently, about 2 weeks back, a close friend lost her job and moved in with me. She said she would be spending her days in the morning applying for jobs while I'm away at work. Ever since she came, she does nothing but play on her PlayStation 5 on my 55-inch TV from 11 a.m. until I come home at around 7 p.m. Then I tell her to let me use the TV as it's my time now, which she gets annoyed and says that she wants to play and finish a certain level. Then if I manage to take the TV and let her shut down the PS5, I use it from around 9 o'clock p.m. until 11 11 o'clock, and sometimes I don't, depending on if I have other priorities. Then she keeps gaming from 11 p.m. until 4 or 7 a.m., which is honestly all depending on the day. I tried to wake her up today for her interview at 9 o'clock, since, you know, she asked me to do that, but she slept in until 11:10, and her interview was at 11:30, and she was late for it. She keeps acting like a child, like sitting on the couch and asking me to get her stuff from the kitchen or whatever. She never helps with house chores, and she sheds a lot of long hairs on the floor and on the bathroom sink that she never picks up even after I asked her to. Today, I was checking my electricity app just to see the consumption of electricity, and it turns out from June 22nd until today, she used the same power I used the whole month of June, and there is still 2 weeks till the end of the month. My rent is high, I have bills to pay, I've got debt, and all I can see is how she is not helping or pushing me up. She is the kind of person with a bad influence. Another thing that annoys me is that she vapes in the house when I tell her not to. I am not a smoker. I've never smoked and I've hated it my entire life. It feels very disrespectful that she doesn't consider my health boundaries. She smokes while sitting beside me indoors with the windows closed. She never helps with cooking too, and she keeps blaming her ADHD for all the things that she's doing. So now I'm at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. It's honestly time for your friend to start pulling her weight. Like seriously, she is a leech. She's come into this house and she's racked up all of your bills, and she basically lied to your face, saying that she's gonna look for a job, but in reality, she's just gonna play the PlayStation 5 all day. And she's doing that from like 11 o'clock until 4 in the morning. Like seriously, she needs to get a job. She needs to start contributing to the household, and she needs to have something to do. And no, she can't just blame this on her ADHD. There are plenty of people with ADHD who get a lot of things done in their lives. So the fact that she seriously is going to try and use that as some kind of crutch or as some kind of excuse is honestly just really dumb. And it's completely just a cop-out. Chances are she probably doesn't have ADHD, and she hasn't been properly prescribed by a doctor, and she's just riding the popular TikTok trend to be like, oh, I'm so lazy, it's because of my ADHD. Like, no, it's time to get up and get to work. Because truly, at this point, she is just using you. She's not motivated to get a job, and it really seems like she's causing a lot of problems in your life. And frankly, if I was in your shoes, I would tell her straight up, you can either get a job and start paying rent, or you've got to go. I honestly think everything else in this situation can be fixed if she just gets a job. That is, if you even want her as some kind of roommate in the first place. So hopefully this works out for you, because from the sounds of it, she really does not sound like a good roommate, and something needs to change or she has got to go. My former teacher treats me like a trophy every time she sees me, despite the fact that she didn't believe me when I told her some awful things about my childhood. And now, as an adult, I seriously don't know what to do. Mrs. Smith was my teacher in 6th grade when I was 11. Mrs. Smith is not her real name. She was my favorite teacher, and she always told me I was her favorite student. And she told me, and weirdly enough, other adults, including other teachers, that she and I had a special relationship, and I had a special place in her heart, and that I was like her own daughter. I usually stayed in at recess and after school to help her with projects. She gave me a lot of responsibility, including letting me mark other kids' tests for her, as well as letting me write down a monthly article in the school newsletter that she was supposed to write herself, and letting me write assembly scripts for her. She gave me her personal cell phone number at the end of 6th grade and told me I should call her in the summer so we could get together, and she always told me I could talk to her about anything. Throughout the following year, we remained close. I still came to her class most days at recess and after school, and she started sometimes pulling me out of my 7th grade classes to have me help her with things that apparently I was the only one who could do it. She constantly told me I was smarter and a better writer than any of the other kids, and she couldn't rely on anyone else for stuff that she was asking of me. She again told me at the end of 7th grade to call her over the summer. The end of 7th grade was very hard for me. My mom and stepdad, who had previously been awful towards me, but had ramped up this awful behavior throughout 7th grade, kicked me out of the house at the end of 7th grade, which resulted in me going to live permanently with my dad. These circumstances were very messy, and they were incredibly devastating for me. And when I started the 8th grade, I was really struggling emotionally. At the beginning of 8th grade, I told Mrs. Smith about my mom and stepdad and how they've been awful to me, and they kicked me out of the house, and how I was stressed about dealing with stuff related to CPS, the police, the courts, etc., and how I was also worried about my brother, who was still living with my mom and stepdad. Mrs. Smith got very angry at me for telling her all this and said I'd put her in a difficult situation because my brother was in her class this year, and by telling her about this stuff that's happening that I had experienced from my mom and stepdad, I would be damaging her relationship with my mom and stepdad, which she would need in order to help my brother. She also told me that she didn't think my mom and stepdad had been that awful to me, and that she had known me for years and had never seen any signs of them being awful, and she was angry at me that she would have to take further mandated action, which basically means she would have to report what I told her, even when she didn't think I was telling the truth. Now, when she said this, I was absolutely devastated by her not believing me, and I tried several more times throughout the school year to get her to understand, but she kept getting angry at me and sometimes yelling at me or telling me things like, "I'm not proud of you when you tell me things like this." Eventually, I stopped trying to get her support, even as multiple events unfolded at the school involving my mom and the police being called. And when I wanted Mrs. Smith's support, she basically told me to get away from her and stay out of it. She was then happy when I stopped trying to get her support and wanted to go back to acting like everything was normal and I wasn't somehow struggling behind the scenes. She still wanted me to come to her class at recess and after school. She continued pulling me out of class to help her with things and stuff like that. I still see Mrs. Smith occasionally because my little sister, who's 9 years old, still goes to that school. Mrs. Smith also still has my phone number and texts me from time to time, particularly when she hears or sees me on the news. I do have a pretty public job overall. She also still likes to talk to other people about me and how much she loves me and how special I am to her. Whenever I see her, she wants to hold my hand and parade me around and tell everyone about all my accomplishments like she is somehow responsible for them. And everyone she talks to in this way is always complimenting my special relationship I have with her. As I get older, I feel less and less comfortable with this dynamic and more angry and confused about how she as an adult could have treated me as a 13-year-old so cruelly when I disclosed the details of my awful situation, and then how she spent the intervening 15 years pretending that never happened at all. Part of me wants to cut ties with her altogether and tell her to stop texting me and interacting with me. Another part of me feels like she was such an important person in my life for a long time, and it might be better to have a conversation with her about how I feel about what happened when I was 13. I highly doubt she's going to understand why what she did was wrong, or that she will apologize in the slightest. More than likely, she'll either deny that these things happened the way that I remember them, or she'll blame me and tell me that it was really my fault for lying and telling her stuff like this at all, or better yet, she'll get emotional and start crying and need me to comfort her for what she did. But I do think it might be helpful for me to say my piece and set her straight on what our actual relationship feels like to me. So maybe then she'll stop talking to other people about how close we are and how special I am to her, and at least it might help me to get it off my chest. But I also know she's very conflict avoidant, which is what led to this problem to begin with. So if I text her and say, "I'd like to talk about some stuff that happened when I was 13, she is definitely not going to want to talk about it. But if I just say, "Hey, let's get some coffee," and she says okay, and then I bring this up without warning her, I feel like I might be tricking her or forcing her into a conversation that she would not have consented to if she had known, which might not be fair for her at all. I've thought about writing this stuff down in a text or email or a letter, but I know she probably won't reply to it, and then I'll probably feel very anxious, waiting for some kind of response that probably won't come my way. I don't like being ignored, and I don't like worrying about someone's reaction. What should I do? Honestly, this sounds like an incredibly inappropriate relationship. Like, let me get this straight. This teacher not only knew about the awful situation that you were in with your mom and stepdad, but she also made it a big deal and tried to pretend like this is your fault for telling her about it. She is literally not only an awful teacher, but also an awful human being. Who in their right mind would listen to what a kid is telling them and be like, "Wow, I can't believe you're putting me in this situation"? Like, what are you talking about? You're a mandated reporter. You have an obligation to protect this student. Like, are you really gonna look at me and say, "Oh man, this is such a bad thing for me specifically"? Oh, okay, what about the kid who's telling you all about what they're going through? I'm sure that's a much bigger deal than whatever you're going through mentally. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, and I'm speaking for myself, I absolutely would confront her about this. I would tell her straight up, "Listen, I don't like you using my name as some kind of bartering chip for your own clout. We are not friends. You were an awful person when I was a child, and you did not listen when my mom and stepdad were being awful to me. So please keep my name out of your mouth." That's what I would say personally, because in my opinion, if someone's been awful to me, even if I realize it later in life and I'm starting to connect the dots, and that person is trying to use my name to gain favor from other people, that would literally drive me crazy. There's no way I'm gonna be okay with that. Because the fact of the matter is, she literally tried to gaslight you into thinking that this is your fault, that you were just lying and you were putting her in a bad situation. situation. I mean, don't even get me started on the fact that she's like, oh, you should call me over the summer. Meanwhile, you're what, 12, 13 years old? Like, no, that is highly inappropriate. I'm so sorry you dealt with this, and honestly, you do not deserve to be treated this way. But I think whatever you decide to do, from the sounds of it, you have a high-profile public job, and I think you just need to be careful about the way you do handle this. But regardless of whatever happens, whether you just straight up block her and move on with your life, or if you choose to confront her, that's honestly up to you. However you decide to go about doing this, I want to say I'm so sorry you dealt with this, and hopefully things get better for you and your life. My girlfriend puts a limit on what she is willing to do for me as her boyfriend, stating that unless I make her my wife, she is not willing to step up and show me that she cares. And now I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been dating for about 7 months now. She's a 22-year-old female, and I'm a 23-year-old male. She has brought up a lot of situations where she would not be willing to do things for me because I didn't put a ring on it. That includes making me food, or literally just taking care of me in a certain way, or taking care of me too much. Since we have been together, I have done so much for this girl. I never for 1 second thought of what I would put a limit on in terms of what I would do for my girlfriend, because I never felt like there was a limit as to what you would do for your partner if you really love them. I never thought you needed a title to determine how much or how far you would go for your partner. Since we began dating, I have taken care of this girl by covering her rent for a month because she has not been working. I also bought her a new laptop because she didn't have a laptop for school and she needed one in order to work. And this was a MacBook Pro. This was really expensive. And this would be to help her with her side hustles or just be used for schoolwork. And it was just for straight up necessity. I have also went to Chicago with this girl in January and covered everything, which amounted to just around $2,000 for the whole trip. Since dating, this girl has not spent money on one single date or bought me a single gift except for my birthday, which was prior to me asking her to be my girlfriend. And I never for once asked. I have covered every single date, and I'm pretty sure I've been on over 100 dates at this point. I have bought her gifts for Christmas. I have bought her gifts for Valentine's Day. I have bought her flowers all the time, and whenever she gets them, they just die within a few weeks. I was also just about to plan a $2,000 vacation to the Dominican Republic for her birthday. I will add that since we started dating, she has not been working a consistent job and had to quit her job right before we started talking because she was getting bothered at her job, as her job was mostly full of men. My point being is that I have never put a limit as to what I would do for her, regardless of if she's my wife or not. I love her and I would do anything for her. She did make me breakfast a couple of times months ago, and she all of a sudden switched things up and said that she's not going to do these things unless I put a promise ring on her finger, or at least actually marry her. In a heated argument we had a few days ago, I asked her if she always had this kind of general rule as to what she would do or not do for me if I didn't put a ring on her finger. She then proceeded to tell me that she's only focused on what benefits her in the relationship, and she doesn't ever think about that. So because of the situation, I need to ask the internet, what do you think is the limit of what a man should do for the girlfriend who is not their wife? It could be paying for their bills, spending money on a vacation, as well as visiting them too. What would you put a limit on as to what you would do? Hopefully I can get some answers, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Your girlfriend is awful. Can I just say that first and foremost? Like, she is literally in this just to take from you. She hasn't given anything to you. She takes all your money, all of your time, and it still is not good enough. She doesn't reciprocate this in the slightest. Like, I'm even second guessing if she even loves you in the first place. Like, this is not normal. It is not normal for your girlfriend to be like, oh, you want me to care for you? Okay, you better marry me first. First off, that is crazy talk. Also, you two are in your early 20s. She's 22 and you're 23. And yeah, you could definitely get married at that age, but for starters, you've only known her for 7 months, and in those 7 months, she's basically put a wall up and said, I'm not gonna do anything for you unless you put a ring on my finger and marry me. Like, is she serious right now? So she's willing to accept all these gifts and presents and all this love from you, but for her to reciprocate, she's gonna require you getting married to her? That doesn't sound right in my opinion at all. Honestly, the only thing that's astounding to me is the fact that you're putting up with this. Like, you are literally accepting breadcrumbs from her while effectively bending over backwards just to appeal to your girlfriend, who, by the way, is showing straight up that she's just using you. So if I was in your shoes, I would be reevaluating this relationship. Your girlfriend sounds like an awful piece of work, and it doesn't sound like she cares about you in the slightest. And if I were in your shoes, I would stop taking that as soon as possible. A crazy entitled Karen not only tries to hit on my husband, but once she finds out that he is already accounted for and married, she demands to physically fight me for my husband, with the winner taking all. And I've never been more weirded out by an entitled Karen in my life. Here's what happened. When my now adult daughter was almost 3 years old, we had a regular monthly family dinner plan. We would go to a used bookstore that was near a Mexican place that we liked, and a McDonald's which our kids liked as well. The Mexican restaurant would let us sit on the porch and bring Happy Meals there for our kids. One night, our son, who's older than our daughter, was at a sleepover, so we were just a party of 3. After eating, we went to the used bookstore and we had a stroller with us so that our daughter could sit in it if she got a little too tired. She was an easy kid who would just climb into the little stroller and chill or snooze, especially if we were not done browsing. I was looking at cookbooks while my husband was in the kids section with our daughter, and it was right about then that I noticed some redheaded chick talking to my husband. I went back to the books for a couple of minutes, and when I look up, the woman is still talking, but more so talking at him rather than to him. And I could tell at this point he was getting very uncomfortable. I can tell she is hitting on him by the way he held up his hand and pointed at his wedding ring. Being me, I let this play out for a few minutes, mostly just to laugh about it to him later, and as I watch, my daughter goes to him and wraps her arms around him. She gives this woman the nastiest look I've ever seen on her face, and it's right about then that I start walking over because I can tell that my daughter is about to say something to this woman that I will either laugh at or need to intervene because of it. As I get almost to them, my daughter tells the woman that her daddy already has a mommy for her, and if she doesn't get away from him, she is going to puke all over her. My daughter, by the way, has always had the ability to vomit at will. She had already weaponized it against one of my male relatives with a weak stomach. The woman, not knowing I was behind her, told my daughter that her daddy didn't have a mommy to go with him, and daddies needed mommies. My daughter looked at me with a look that clearly stated, "This lady's an idiot and you need to get her away from me right now." I walk past the woman and up to my husband. I put my arm around him and I lean into him. Then I put the hand wearing my wedding ring up to his chest and I look straight at her. The redhead doesn't have the sense to just leave the area. She had to start a rant about how I should have been right by him if I wanted to keep him, how he should go with her and divorce me because she would never go away from him, and how I don't deserve a man and she does, so she is going to replace me and raise my kids as her own. I looked up at my husband and asked how he kept getting the weirdos that have elevators that don't go all the way up to want to replace me. At this point, the redheaded chick loses it and starts saying that she wants to fight me over him, that whoever wins between the two of us gets to keep him. I asked if she seriously thought I would bother with a fight. He was already mine, and I don't believe in fights. I just aim to take a person out, if you know what I mean. Then this lunatic said that I was threatening to hurt her. At that point, my daughter had had enough. She walked over to the lady and waited until the stupid woman bent down to talk to her. Then my daughter puked all over her, and it was sort of up onto this lady's neck so that when she stood up, lots of it ran down her shirt. Staff was already on the way over and wanted to know why the lady was screaming. I told them she was hitting on my husband and then wanted to fight me for him. I don't know why she suddenly started to say that I wanted to unalive her or hurt her in some way. I don't even own a weapon, if you know what I mean. She was just trying to be an idiot, and then she got my daughter all upset, so my daughter puked on her. I cleaned our daughter up and I had her rinse out her mouth. On the way home, my husband insisted we stop and buy her some ice cream. When I asked my daughter why she thought she needed to puke on the lady, my daughter told me that we already had wasted enough time talking and it clearly wasn't going anywhere, so she decided to end it. And honestly, my daughter has always had a way of cutting through the garbage in life. What a crazy Karen that lady was. She seriously thought she could fight for this guy, even though this guy was very clearly accounted for. Like, that's insane to me. That really is a different level of crazy, and she obviously had a few screws loose if she thought for a second that fighting this lady was ever gonna win this guy over onto her side in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. I just found out that my boyfriend of a year cheated on me the day that we moved in together, and I feel so hurt and betrayed, I seriously don't know what to do. So I've been dating a man for the past year and everything was perfect. He treated me insanely well. He didn't have any other crazy or toxic traits I saw in other guys my age, and I was in between moving home for a few months to save a little money or just to get a spot with him. After numerous numerous discussions and plans, we decided to get a place. Yesterday, he helps me finish packing and we move everything. He moved about 4 hours to this side of the state just to be with me. We unpack and get settled in. Right as we're about to watch a show, I see a text pop up on his phone. Now, I've never felt the need to go through his phone because we've never had an issue. The message said something along the lines of, "Oh, I miss you so much." I wait a minute, go to the restroom to gain my composure, and come out to talk to him. I simply asked to see his phone. When he unlocked it, he replied by saying, "I miss you too, I'll see you tomorrow," because he was supposed to go to his parents this weekend to dog sit. At this point, I freak out and I say to myself, what is happening? He claims it's just a friend. However, upon going into recently deleted messages, I see over 207 messages between Friday and Wednesday. The messages were graphic and laid out completely what they did and how much he liked it. I went for a drive so I wouldn't act out of anger, and then came back to have a talk. He claimed he knew her from high school and it was a one-time thing, which was total BS, claiming that it was a mistake. I asked if there was anything lacking in our relationship, and he said no, I'm perfect. He claims it was more of a bachelor party mindset in which he did it one time before looking in and taking the next step with me. And I would believe that if there wasn't 200 plus messages, as well as him saying, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow." I'm honestly now so sick. I feel disgusted. I feel betrayed and honestly really stupid. I can't afford this lease on my own, but I also don't have any room for a roommate. I just don't get why he has to sign the lease at all. I told him to leave last night. I even helped him pack and I sent him to his parents. Now I'm stuck with this lease. And honestly, I'm just not sure what to do. He wants another chance, but I don't think this is something I could ever get over. What should I do? Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would not look back for a second. Like, he clearly had priorities with another person, and he obviously wanted to spend more quality time with them, as opposed to actually maintaining his relationship, which really should have been his priority. Like, seriously, this is not your fault, and this is nothing that you did personally. He made the choice to cheat, not the other way around. I mean, you wanted to live with this guy. You had a lease together and everything, and he was the one that betrayed your trust. So personally, I would start looking for another roommate. There's no way I would want to get back with my partner if they cheated on me like that. That is a massive betrayal of trust, and if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would let that slide. An entitled Karen complains that nobody is there to help her out when she needs it, despite the fact that we're understaffed. So I decided to get revenge, and I made her feel incredibly guilty for ever complaining. Here's what happened. Last summer, I was working at my Red Craft store job, checking out people at registers, when my foot slid off the ancient mats and something in my foot's bones clicked. 3 days of work missed, workman's comp, and a few x-rays later, I'm on a medical boot that finally lets me walk around without a ton of pain. A couple of weeks go by and I'm at work in the boot feeling much better, getting around at a good pace, and even running faster than my middle-aged manager to grab a call. The night comes to an end and we start up the closing process. An important thing to note is that at this store, we almost only have a maximum of 3 people, including a manager, to close the store. And some nights it's even 2 people. This isn't a lack of employees, it's more of a corporate order just to save money. So there I am, sitting behind the very large framing desk, inputting the paperwork into the computer while sitting on a stool to ease off my foot. And this is right when a lady stomps up and yells, "Finally!" Surprised, I leaned around my computer and I give a polite, "How may I help you?" She huffs and gives a gesture towards the floor. "Yes, you may. There's no one anywhere to help me. The only person is that girl at the registers that refuses to help me." Now, people on the registers cannot leave the area, but typically point you in the correct direction. I start to get up to help her when she says, "This place is a mess." And then she said something that was a major dig at my coworker that I can't really remember her wording for, but I just remember becoming incredibly angry at it. It was at this point I had an idea. Standing up, I say, "I'm so incredibly sorry, ma'am. What were you looking for? I can try and help you." "Your glassware," she says haughtily. "You know, for flowers." "Of course," I say, starting to limp around the corner that since now had obscured everything below my apron pockets. Vases are this way. We currently don't have any in seasonal, but we do have our standard in stock. This lady let out a gasp and started to stutter when I had fully emerged from behind the counter. Oh, it's fine. You could just, I don't know, point me in the right direction." I say to her, "Oh no, it's fine. It's this way. Follow me." I then proceed to slowly limp, favoring my boot more than I had in weeks, and adding some swing in my shoulders for sure. I apologized for the lack of employees on the floor and brought her over to the vases, which by the way were were very easy to find in the first place if you know where to look. I grabbed the vase that she wanted from the top shelf, made a show of checking for any damage on the vase, and I asked her if there was anything else I could help her find. She straight up refused to look me in the eyes and muttered something like, "No, I'm good, thank you, I'm sorry," and then proceeded to walk away. I went back to the frame shop and I had an amazing laugh, and I honestly hope she remembers the way she acted this night. I've always been a fan of customers getting exactly what they deserve. Like if they're being frustrating and very annoying, or if they're just being rude in general, getting some kind of petty revenge, or at least making them feel bad for acting the way they did, honestly is like the best thing on planet Earth. So the fact that this person had a boot on their foot and they were able to hobble around and make this person feel guilty for acting like a fool is truly some amazing karma. Customers like this really do have it coming. They act as if the whole world revolves around them, and they freak out anytime someone's not there to help them out. Like, does she not know what time it is? Is she seriously blind to the fact that the store is about to close and most of the workers are about to go home? Like, come on, get a grip. There's no reason to act like everybody has to wait on you hand and foot. So good for you for putting this Karen in her place in a subtle way. I'm sure she felt really guilty about making you hobble over there to find the vase, and hopefully that corrects her behavior in the future. My entitled assistant manager tries to boss me and my other coworkers around about a job that she has no idea about. So I decide to get revenge, and as a result, everything fell behind and no one was to blame except the assistant manager. Here's what happened. So I used to work a home improvement retailer that's popular in the Midwest of the United States. Nothing bad against the company other than the simple fact it's retail, and my fair share of customer stories that came out of it. But today, this story is about my assistant manager at the time. At the time of this story, I was working as a morning stalker with two other guys, and I did have seniority over them despite having only been with the company and the store for 6 months. And the older gentleman was a downstalker and was a retired aviation engineer who just got bored of retirement and wanted something active, which will be important a little bit later. Our department manager, who was my first and absolute best manager, had a policy where us stalkers would put away the heavy bulk items that can be taken off the pallets and thrown away onto the shelves without unwrapping anything. Think pet food, cat litter, 5-gallon buckets of paint, stuff like that. And yes, I know that's a weird combo, but that's just what our department did. We would work through the bulk items, working our way down to the smaller items until we got to the smallest overall, stuff like theater box candy and stuff along those lines. One morning we come into work on this particular fine Friday morning where the manager had the day off, and it was the assistant manager for that morning as well as for the whole weekend. Managers alternated working on the weekends, which is a reason I refused the management position. And it was this day that she felt the need to up her game or something like that, because she told us in the morning note that us stalkers needed to work on the smaller items first and work our way to the larger items. We all exchanged looks and knew that this was a bad idea, so I told him to just do the normal stuff and I would ask her about it when she came in an hour and a half. She eventually came in, and fortunately for us, me and the other stalker had finished our prospective pallets, while the downstalker was just working the usual rounds, walking up and down the ladder. I asked her if she really wanted to proceed with this line of process, as there were 10 pallets in the receiving area for our department, and 6 of them were bulk items we could have done in less than an hour, and one of the reasons we stalkers did the bulk items, as our manager would jokingly put it, he didn't want the sales team to smell like garbage, which makes sense if you ask me, because I've smelt myself on the way home after working a bulk freight all day, but honestly that's another story. But she was adamant that we do the small piddly stuff so the sales team can focus on making sales and other more important stuff. And one other thing I failed to mention is that it was thunderstorming outside this Friday, which is a good day to me, as I might as well live in Seattle or other places where it rains a lot, which also causes sales to drop dramatically at our store, given its location of our city, as only contractors don't really care about the weather. Without skipping a beat, the other stalker and I nodded our heads, and when the assistant manager wasn't looking, I grabbed the note she left for us from the recycling box we had to use for later, as I knew what was about to happen, as I knew where this day was about to go. To make an already long story not so long, the story repeated itself on Saturday, but rather than do a couple of bulk items, in the hour and a half we had before the assistant manager came in, we maliciously complied and did the smaller items like candy, off-the-shelf medicines like aspirin, and other small pain-in-the-butt items, and we got about 7 pallets of of freight out on Friday, 4 of them being bulk and 2 on that Saturday, despite another 15 pallets coming in. The stockers also didn't work on Sundays. The stockers would work from 5 a.m. until 9 a.m., and it was Monday morning when the manager would switch places, so the department manager would be in at noon that day, and it was about 8:30 in the morning when the assistant manager realized how bad she messed up, as we had over 10 pallets in the back aisle, but the receiving end was packed with another 20 to 30, with over 20 of those pallets being bulk items that we very easily could have done. Being friends with several people on sales, we come to find out that she told none of the salespeople to work on the freight and would even tell the ones who would work on the freight when their daily tasks were done to work on something else, like straightening the shelves or stuff like that. I also found out from friends in receiving that there were 2 more trucks coming in that day, which caused me and the other stockers to giggle just a little bit. At about 8:30, the assistant manager told us, including the nice 67-year-old down stocker, to start working the bulk freight to get as much out of the way. The thing was, I had class at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I needed to go home to shower so I didn't smell bad, and the down stocker smirked and told the other stocker that we were going to leave on time with him, and the other stocker came up with their own reasons for having to leave on time. Tuesday comes around, and the department manager's note to us told us to work on nothing but bulk freight, and that he wanted to talk to me specifically when he came in at 6:30. Soon as he came in, before he could say a word to ask what happened, I took the papers the assistant manager gave us and placed them in front of him. If disappointed anger could take someone's life, then his flared nostril and deep breath with an exhale would have taken down a whole city. His eyes rolled back and he shook his head before laughing and bringing the other stocker over and telling us whoever got the most pallets done would get about $20. Sad to say I didn't win, but I did get a second place with $10. As I said, he was the best manager I've ever had so far. Eventually, we were able to get about 25 pallets done in just about 2.5 hours. The best part was the manager thanking us, handing our winnings, and then telling us at 9 o'clock to go home and take a shower because we smell like garbage. And to this day, we still laugh about that incident. Honestly, this really goes to show you that some people seriously should stand clear of any management position, because this assistant manager literally made things harder for everybody else for little to no reason. If they had just kept their mouth shut and stayed out of the way, they could have avoided this problem and let the people who know what they're doing get done the stuff in front of them. But thankfully, it looks like the original poster has a really good manager, because if they didn't, this honestly could have gone a lot differently. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that I don't want to listen to Taylor Swift 24/7 while we're on vacation? Here's what happened. So for some context, since January, my wife has been playing almost nothing but Taylor Swift every single day on repeat, and we're averaging about an hour of her music every single day. My wife is a huge fan, and she shed many tears when we decided she couldn't pay $1,000 to see the concert. Now, I am really not a fan at all of Taylor Swift. I think Taylor needs new subject material, and overall, I think she's a good songwriter, but a bit repetitive and really boring to me. Whether we're in the car having a game night with neighbors, sitting by the pool, playing cards, or simply cooking, my wife is playing and singing Taylor Swift music over Bluetooth speaker. It started off as really cute, and then it got really annoying. Then it made me feel like I'm hanging out with a 14-year-old from 2011. I am permanently banned from saying anything negative about Taylor Swift. Saying I don't like her is always taking away from her achievement as the first female artist to have such a successful tour, as she puts it. We are currently in a hotel with 4 family members about to go on vacation. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and my wife starts playing to brush her teeth. Nobody else was particularly bothered because they don't have any context, but I think they were clearly wondering why she was playing it so loud. I asked if we could take a vacation from Taylor Swift this week as well, and my wife threw a bit of a fit, saying I embarrassed her or implied that she was being immature. Her parents are even telling me I'm being rude. I asked my wife to step outside to chat, and I told her I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings. It didn't go well, and now I've apparently ruined the vacation. I understand making her feel awkward and her family not being bothered, but am I the jerk for being tired of her singing the 10-minute version of All Too Well, as well as listening to Taylor Swift on repeat constantly? What should I do? There has got to be some kind of compromise here. First off, you saying no, I don't want to listen to this right now on speakerphone is completely reasonable. You already hear this all day, every day at home, and you just want to have a weekend where you don't have to listen to Taylor Swift or her music music at all. So I seriously don't think that was some kind of unreasonable explanation or some kind of unreasonable request in the slightest. And also, just because you criticize Taylor Swift as not being a fan of her, it doesn't mean you're downplaying her achievement. And also, who cares about her achievements? You're listening to her music all day, every day. I'm pretty sure I would go crazy regardless of the artist if my significant other was only playing that music. Like, she seriously doesn't like anything else. She seriously only likes Taylor Swift, no other music. I'm pretty sure that would drive just about anybody crazy. And it's not like your wife can't listen on like earbuds or something like that. She can still listen to the music, but maybe just not out loud at 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, people are probably trying to wake up still. And sure, family's not gonna say anything, but it doesn't mean you can't. There's gotta be some kind of compromise on this. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. I think your wife overreacted simply because family was there, and now you're being ganged up on, and honestly, I really just don't think that's fair. My entitled Karen of a roommate calls the cops on me after I ask her to pay me back for rent, and I've never been more shocked by anyone's behavior in my life. Here's what happened. So I share a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment with someone who gets triggered by the most minor things. She thrives on conflict, and I do my best not to cause any conflict, but it is nearly impossible with this 38-year-old woman who also just so happens to work from home. For example, she doesn't want me to be around some of the common areas, such as the outdoor patio, because she told me her stuff is there. She has a lot of stuff, by the way. She has so much stuff that she feels the need to put some of it in the living room and on the patio because there's so much of it. She also told me she is a germaphobe. She doesn't want me to touch anything, such as the light switches, the doorknobs, refrigerator handles, or the kitchen sink handles. And if I do, I need to wipe it down because she thinks that my hands are gross and sweaty. So okay, whatever. As long as she is paying rent, I can tolerate it. This changed though when she became a deadbeat. She said that she would pay me sometime last week, but she still hasn't done it. She actually needed to pay me on the 1st of June, but I made the mistake of trusting her and letting her get by. I am a bit frustrated, not only at myself, but at her as well. I already submitted paperwork to get her evicted, but the notice gives her 2 weeks. Even then, if she doesn't move out, I will have to actually get a court order just to make her move, and that will take weeks alone. Today, I decided to sit in the living room and wait for my roommate so we could try and talk about rent. When my roommate Karen arrived and saw me sitting near her stuff, she literally freaked out. She rudely called me out and told me not to sit near her stuff. I asked her when she'll be paying me back. She ignored me and continued to walk into her room. Then, 15 to 20 minutes later, she walked out while talking on the phone. I asked her again and she still ignored me. She walked around to go outside to the patio and closed the sliding door behind her. I pretty much just chilled next to her stuff in front of the sliding door. When she came out of the patio, I decided to go out on the patio and close the sliding door behind me. After 20 minutes on the patio, I was dumbfounded that she hadn't tried to argue with me yet. I thought that would do it, but boy did I not realize that this was only the beginning of my troubles. It's right about then that I caught a glimpse of her phone on the other side of the sliding glass patio doors. Glancing at me, I heard her say, "He is sitting on the floor watching videos on his phone." I didn't think much of it. She was probably telling her friend how triggered she was, which is the reaction I wanted. She should know that I have a right to use this space. 10 minutes later, lo and behold, a female cop opened the sliding door. I was baffled because I knew I didn't break any law. I didn't bother her, I didn't raise my voice, I didn't throw insults, I didn't show violent aggression, I didn't touch her or threaten my roommate. The cop asked me what was going on. I nervously explained to the cop that my roommate and I had some conflict on rent, and I added that my roommate gets mad whenever I chill out on the patio. First, she told me my roommate can take a walk if she's triggered by me sitting on the patio. Secondly, she asked me if I was going through the legal process of kicking her out. I said yes, and then I showed her the emails. She told me to sit tight and then walk back inside to chat with my roommate. I heard my roommate talking loudly. I couldn't make out what she was saying, probably talking about how bad of a roommate I am, which is truly ironic. After 10 minutes, the same cop returned and told me my roommate was rambling about stuff. I just nodded and told her it didn't surprise me. She went back inside, and after 10 minutes, the cop came back and told me they couldn't do anything and that this was a civil matter. We were told to avoid and not talk to each other, and then they left. My roommate went to get her blood pressure checked by a paramedic. She later returns to her room just to pout and cry. Fast forward, and she's been crying in her room for over an hour, and I think she was probably talking to her mom, because suddenly I received $956 in my bank account. I wasn't expecting this at all, but honestly, I don't care. So when it comes to my stupid entitled Karen of a roommate, that's exactly what you get. And if you don't like it, I'll be sitting in the common area next to your stuff if you want to talk. What an awful roommate. Imagine trying to collect rent and she goes ahead and says, I'm gonna call the police. You're threatening me. Like seriously, you're an idiot. I really hope she got in trouble for calling the police on something that was so useless. Like your roommate wasn't doing anything wrong. Just because you're getting upset by the fact that you owe them money doesn't mean you get to call the police and pretend like they did anything wrong. Because the original poster is just looking for their money, and it doesn't matter if you hide outside, on the patio, or in the front room. You still owe them money and you better pay up. Because very quickly, if you don't pay up, you're going to be in the court of law and you're going to be wishing you had just paid for your rent. So good for the original poster for putting your foot down and not letting this weird entitled Karen try to get their way. Because the way they were acting was so uncalled for, and they had no right to call the cops on something that absolutely did not need their presence. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for kicking the majority of my husband's family out of our wedding when they celebrated their traditions, but violated many of my personal rules and boundaries? Here's what happened. So my husband and I just got married this January, but the wedding was an absolute mess. For context, my husband by the name of Ben, that's not his real name, has a very close-knit family that doesn't take well to outsiders, surprises, or change. Most family reunions and gatherings don't allow plus ones or spouses, only immediate family. Ben has 2 brothers and 1 sister. Each of my in-laws have wives and husbands, yet they still aren't allowed to come to the majority of the family events. So it's unfortunately not just me. Even though I can't attend most events with his family, I still have a somewhat decent relationship with them. Before the wedding, I've never had a major issue with them, but they've always been distant from me and I don't really mind. Now let's talk about the wedding itself. The wedding was planned for New Year's Day, since that was the day that we met, the day Ben asked me to be his girlfriend, and the day that he proposed. So that holiday has always been very special to us. Everyone agreed that New Year's Day was a perfect day for the wedding, so no issues there in the slightest. Unfortunately, we did have a problem with other things. Ben's family has lots of odd traditions that they do, and over the years I've put up with them and embraced them. They include having a homemade sheet cake rather than a professional wedding cake, wearing all white, and having all the children walk up the aisle to toss flowers rather than having one designated flower girl or boy. However, I wanted my day to be good for the both of us, so we made some compromises. We could have the homemade sheet cake, but we both had to agree on the flower and design. Anyone could wear what they wanted besides white, and there would be no children at the wedding. And my husband suggested that, not me. We both talked to our families and everyone agreed that these rules and boundaries were fine. That is, until the day of the wedding came, and my side of the family was dressed appropriately, with no children present, and everything was going great. But when Ben's family came along, everything changed. There were lots of children and babies, and everyone was wearing all white. Apparently, their tradition was more important than what I had already said. Only 3 people actually respected the rules set in place: the spouses of Ben's siblings. Ben and I were mortified. We immediately kicked them out and allowed the 3 people who followed the rules to stay, but they left with their partners, which we really didn't mind. The wedding went as normal, but it felt incredibly ruined. We ended up canceling the post-wedding celebration after some of his family members snuck inside. After we came back from our honeymoon, we were both berated by his family members and basically shunned from his family. I feel so guilty for not allowing them to practice their traditions. So honestly, am I the jerk for shutting them down and kicking them out of my wedding for not following the rules? Let me say this first and foremost, as honestly as I can. Your in-laws and extended family are completely in the wrong here. I don't care what their traditions are. The fact that they came to your wedding and blatantly broke the rules set in place is entirely inappropriate, and it completely is disregarding you and your special day. They had no right to show up and try and ruin your special day with your husband, and they are absolutely in the wrong for doing this. I mean, at least there were some people that tried to follow the rules. Like, that at least can be commendable, but the rest of the family seriously tried to hijack your wedding. They tried to say, oh, you made some rules? Yeah, forget that. We're gonna show up in white and all our kids are gonna be running all over the place. So truly, I don't blame you for kicking them out. They were being weird, they broke the rules, and they did not respect you or your boundaries. And in my opinion, you are completely justified for getting them out of there. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same same thing. My ex-wife is about to be homeless and is now begging me to live with me and my son in my home. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, buckle up, friends, because my life's fever dream is about to get weird. I will be as brief as possible, but I am still trying to figure out what to do here, which is why I am posting this. For a bit of backstory, 3 years ago during COVID, my ex-wife by the name of Patricia, that's not her real name, completely cheated on me. We have one young son and have been married for 7 years. I tried to work things out, but her mom convinced her she cheated because she was unhappy with me. It was a very high conflict divorce, and at first, I made a few bad decisions, which was letting her have access to our joint bank account. I had a ton of false police accusations against me and CPS calls, so I put everything up to a camera. I walked with a body cam outdoors. I was utterly self-monitored to avoid allegations. A week after I put up the cameras, I caught her and her family breaking into my house. Legally speaking, she did not get arrested because we are still married, but it does look bad in court. However, I took my lawyer's advice, and the custody my state gives fathers. Fortunately for me, she fell in love with someone in a European country and handed away most of the rights to my son. Most, as in I got full custody, but she retained legal custody, meaning that she could pull him out of school or get his medical records and stuff like that. My lawyer said this protected me if we went back to court because she would probably win that before and I would look bad. 1 year later, she is getting divorced a second time and moving in with our mutual friend. The divorce happened about a month ago, and during this time, she has not attempted to visit my son. As a side note here, my lawyer advised me to play it cool and not to antagonize, nor withhold our son. Also, he told me to buy a house and set down some roots. That way, it makes it harder to take him away from me. Again, our divorce was a high conflict one, and I was terrified she would try and take him away from me. I am more than willing to allow her to see my son, and I want her to do the right thing and let my son grow up happy. Honestly, that's all I care about. Her history says that she is very volatile, and I am very concerned. But this is where the current problem comes into play. I don't want to bury the lead here, so the crux is that she wants to move in for a few weeks until her YouTube career takes off. I am not insane, so I do not have any confidence in this career. I also question her mental health for the reasons listed above. For some further context, our mutual friends, a couple with 3 children, grew tired of my ex-wife, and for good reason. They assumed she would do the usual thing, get a job and get back up on her feet. They also work very hard and sometimes struggle to get by, so working 10 hours a day to then come home to someone doing absolutely nothing is very discouraging. They gave her a deadline to get out, and they would involve legal matters. That deadline is in a few days, so my ex-wife has decided to call me and ask if she could live with me for a few weeks. She recently joined some new age religion. There is a lot of detail to share here, but I want to leave the tangent manageable. So instead, I'll just say that she believes a very specific religion line by line, even though she denies that religion by name, and that's the most I'm gonna say. Now, I am religious, so I'm careful not to make fun of other religions. It would not be sincere of me to do so, but it started with tarot card readings, which then led to going onto TikTok, and she believes that she is a starseed and an ancient alien who came to spread the light to the world. It seems like a mix of a few different specific religions and other spiritual things all mashed in one. She thinks that she is a chosen being, risen above the masses, and of course, that plays strongly into her ego. Everyone internally wants to feel like they are unique, and believing that you're some kind of royal bloodline certainly feeds into that. Right now, I am legitimately suspecting some kind of mental illness. Our mutual friends tell me that they don't recognize her anymore, and that she is being secretive and not letting them know what's happening. I'm a single dad with 100% custody and 0 support from the other parent. My dating life is also not looking up, but I have a promising career and we get by. I'm incredibly fortunate in a lot of ways. I've been getting a ton of therapy for my codependent behaviors, and I honestly don't need this. She tells me she will be homeless if I don't take her in. She is not speaking with her immediate family because she moved to another country. If I let her in though, it will seriously affect my mental health. What on earth should I do? I am leaning towards calling her bluff and letting her figure it out, though it appears that she will never get a job. Would the courts hate that? I am very uncomfortable with this position and I seriously don't know what to do. Your ex-wife sounds like she is mentally unwell and she seriously needs help. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, there's no way on earth I would let her in. I would be an absolute fool to let that that happen. This would be horrible for you and your son. And also, I'm very curious about what kind of YouTube career this lady has, because I very highly doubt she has anything in front of her. This sounds like someone who is clearly going through a mental crisis and someone that absolutely needs some help. And fortunately, that help does not need to come from you. So in my opinion, I would steer clear of this, because this sounds like an out-of-control train. And if you're not careful, she will absolutely ruin everything that you've worked for. Am I the jerk for denying an older woman shelter from a storm after she creeped me out and gave me a weird feeling after she demanded to get into my car? Here's what happened. So I'm an avid hiker in Australia. Last week, I encountered a middle-aged woman around 50 years old as I was coming off the trail. She was walking in my direction as I came out of the bush. It was strange to see her. The sun was almost down and the weather was starting to turn. Also, this was an immediate collection of trails at best and was difficult even for me at the worst. She didn't look super athletic. My point being, my weird radar was already going off. She walked up to me and stopped, standing too close for my comfort, gestured toward the clearing where my car was parked, and asked whether it was my car. No greeting, no nothing. When I looked over, something made me uncomfortable. There were no other cars other than mine in sight. The trail I was on isn't crazy far from civilization, but it's not a walk away. One of those highway rest stops that's there for the trail and a few parking spots, if that. So there's no way she could have gotten here without driving. I let her know that yes, it was my car, to which she responded something like, "Perfect, there's a storm coming and I can't be caught in the middle of it. I need to get home." She was very matter of fact. It seemed like she had already decided what would happen. Without waiting for my response, she then started striding towards my car. I am glad I always lock my doors, because she would have hopped right in the passenger seat had the door opened. As she was walking over to it, I went after her, trying to explain that I wasn't sure it was a good idea for her to hitch a ride, asking why she was out here in the first place. I was practically talking to a brick wall until she realized the car was locked, at which point she turned around with this look of anger and frustration on her face. She started ranting the same stuff as before. "I need to go home. The storm is coming. I cannot be caught in it. Why don't you get it?" I was very confused at this point, while also being just a little bit scared, as this woman was now a barrier between me and my vehicle. I told her something like, "I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable with a stranger in my car." She stared me down for a few seconds, I guess trying to gauge her chances at asking again. And just like that, the anger drops from her face and she goes silent. I was really uncomfortable. I asked if I could call someone, if there was another way to help her out, but she starts walking towards me. But thankfully, then she walks right past me. I'm still asking her questions, then just saying stuff like, "Hello, excuse me?" But there was no response. She walked to the other end of the rest stop and maintained eye contact with me as she sat down on a log. Then she just stared at nothing. I did not follow her. I got into my car really shaken up and I drove away. As soon as I was back in cell phone range, I called fire and rescue, and they said that they would send someone out right away. I was so scared for my safety in that moment, but she was just some woman alone in the middle of nowhere. Am I the jerk for refusing this lady a ride, as well as shelter from my car? You are not the jerk. In fact, you're a genius. You did the right thing by saying, "No, I do not want you in my car." Here's the thing, and this is honestly my philosophy in life. If I'm uncomfortable with a situation, I'm not gonna do it. You can't make me do it. No one's gonna force me to do anything. If my weird radar is going off and I feel like my safety is legitimately in danger, then I'm not gonna do it. And there is no one that can convince me otherwise. This isn't just me having anxiety. Sometimes your body just knows when a situation is off. So when some strange person, woman, man, whoever, walks up to you in the middle of the night practically, alone on a trail with nobody else around, and says that they're getting into your car to get out of this supposed storm, then that immediately is going to be a situation where I'm gonna say, "No, you are not gonna do that." I would much rather be rude than not alive, if you know what I mean. She very easily could have been carrying something very dangerous that could have made this into something a lot more extreme. I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. She could have pulled something out and taken your car from you. Then what are you gonna do? Suddenly your good deed turned into a really bad situation. In the modern day and age, people have a lot of options to get around where they need to go. But that does not mean you have to bend to anybody and everybody's will just to try and help them out. I'm all about being a good Samaritan. I'm all about helping people in need and being charitable to your fellow man. All that stuff is great. But if it jeopardizes my safety, there's no way I'm gonna participate. I'm gonna step away and find the proper avenues to help somebody. And the way the original poster handled this this situation is honestly the exact same way I would handle this situation. Calling fire and rescue is the best thing you could do for this lady, because at the end of the day and the way she was acting seriously was incredibly sketchy, and this very easily could have become something a lot more dangerous. Am I the jerk for purchasing my guy friend his dream birthday present and outshining his girlfriend in the process? So my guy friend, we'll call him Timmy, that's not his real name, has been one of my best friends since college. We're in our mid-20s now and are both currently in committed relationships with long-term partners. I have never had feelings for Timmy, nor has he ever had feelings for me. Ever since college, Timmy has been a huge watch fanatic. 2 months ago, he was showing me this stunning vintage watch and made an offhand comment about how he would explode with joy if he somehow got his hands on one. Very coincidentally, I was in New York City a few weeks ago and I stumbled upon this watch store and just so happened to have the exact same one that Timmy was looking for. It was expensive, I won't lie, and it was about $2,500, but I decided to get it for his 25th birthday. To me, it was basically fate. My boyfriend and I do very well financially, so this was something that I could personally afford, and I wanted to buy it for Timmy, especially knowing how happy it would make him. Now, Timmy has a tradition of hosting a dinner party at his place for his birthday, and then following that up with some cake and gift opening. I told him before the dinner that my gift was a huge surprise, and asked if he could save it for last, and he agreed to do so. His girlfriend ends up going first, and she gets him this gorgeous sweater that she crocheted for him and a book that he's been wanting, which I thought was super thoughtful and lovely. Last, it was my gift. When he opened it and saw what it was, he literally screamed, hopped over a bunch of people, and squeezed me in this big bear hug. I was so happy to see him happy. It genuinely filled me with so much joy. He even got emotional, and I saw him swipe a few tears. He also said that it was the best gift he'd ever received. The whole time, his girlfriend was only slightly smiling and stayed quiet. The next morning, I get a text from his girlfriend that essentially said that although she appreciated my thoughtful gift, she thought that it was a bit out of touch and lacking awareness. She admitted that Timmy had also told her about the watch and she wanted to get it for him, but it was way out of her budget. She accused me of knowing this, even though I had no idea, and still got it just to rub it in her face and try and outshine her at his birthday. She finished by saying how she felt like I had overstepped a boundary by getting the gift and would appreciate me not doing anything similar to it again in the future. I responded and told her that while I could see her point of view, I was just trying to do a nice thing for a close friend of mine. I asked her, wouldn't you rather he had gotten the gift and seen the happiness it brought him than him not getting it at all? She responded that happiness was only shared between me and Timmy, and that no one else felt happy about what I did for him, and that she felt hurt by my actions. Only my boyfriend knows about this and he's on my side. But thinking it through again, I do see how I could have overstepped, but my boyfriend says that it's not my job to apologize for her insecurities. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here. Like, I'm sorry you can't afford the watch, but guess what? I could, and he really wanted it and he was really happy. Like, the fact that she can't be happy for her boyfriend getting things that he wants is honestly a big red flag. She clearly wanted this day to be all about her, and that's just not fair for the boyfriend in the slightest. So truly, you did nothing wrong. The girlfriend in this situation is being a weirdo, and honestly, it really shows that you really do care about your friend. My entitled roommate stays up all hours of the night playing Fortnite with his friends, and after having him scream at 3 in the morning for getting another victory royale, I decided that I had had enough, so I decided to get some revenge. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I had 3 roommates. 2 of us lived upstairs and 2 of us lived downstairs. All of us were 20 to 21 years old, yet I was the only person in that house that wasn't completely burnt from college, snowboarding, and partying. So in turn, I was always the one cleaning, taking out the trash, shoveling snow, patching holes in the wall, setting up the Wi-Fi, etc. I held the lease, the utilities, the Wi-Fi, and I was the sole point of contact for the landlords, neighbors, and repairmen. Basically, everything ran through me in the house. My roommate who lived upstairs with me was very privileged, and he didn't work. His parents paid for his lifestyle, and they didn't bother to check up too often. We had an adjoined bathroom, and basically, if I open my bathroom door in my room, and he opens it in his room, we can sit on our beds and look at each other in the face. The bathroom was quite small, so it was maybe 15 feet from bed to bed. He would always leave his bathroom door open and then loudly play Fortnite all night. He would be screaming stuff like, "Let's go, boys, here we go, let's get the W, boys, we got this, boys," and in the process would be waking me up multiple times times a night. In the past, I was cool with everyone having weird hours, as well as our lifestyle being a flurry of bad choices. But I was growing up, and my friends were clearly not. I had just gotten my first salary job at a very large, well-known, and hated corporate finance firm. I was at the very bottom, and I was hating my life. I was being overworked, underappreciated, and being hyper-monitored. I mean, the amount of time I spent in the bathroom was a metric that they even looked at. It was tough. I even gained 50 pounds in 6 months overall. I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and my roommate would still be playing Fortnite. I started closing his bathroom door before I went to bed, but he would just open it 30 minutes later and then leave it open. I reached a boiling point one night, and I asked him to stop playing at night, but he blew it off in his usual style. But rather than getting angry, I decided to get smart and started planning my revenge. Just like Pavlov's dog, my friend was highly influenceable. I mean, there wasn't a lot of stimulus getting through his skull on a daily basis. At first, I tried to be nice. Then I tried full-on manipulation. I could turn off the house's IP address from being able to connect on my Wi-Fi with ease. I don't think anyone in the house ever knew that it was possible, and they just perceived the Wi-Fi as this strange magic box that you just plug into an outlet in the wall and then it just appears. So I started blocking his Xbox's IP address every night before bed. So to fix that issue, he started using his phone to tether his Xbox. So then, like clockwork, I started blocking his phone and his laptop as well. And then I would switch them back and forth for like 15 minutes, and then disconnect them all once he was in the middle of a game. I was trying to get him to believe that the Wi-Fi was just messed up late at night. After weeks of hearing him stomp around in frustration and a couple of calls to the internet service provider, as well as a convincing clueless performance by yours truly, he finally admitted defeat. My original goal was to make him quieter at night. I figured he would catch on what I was doing and simply not yell at 3 in the morning every single night. But what happened instead was much better. He started going to bed at a reasonable time and started waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning to play his game, because that's when he believed that the Wi-Fi was going strong. Unfortunately for him though, his group of 20-year-old Fortnite diehards did not have the luxury of not working and could only play at night. He eventually got bored of playing without his friends and started hanging out at the local skate park, as well as the shoe store where our mutual friend was working. And eventually he actually got his first job out of pure boredom, which means I single-handedly conditioned my friend to improve his life and mine. And this was all done in 60 days without him knowing in the slightest. So in the end, I was able to finally get some sleep, and my friend was able to start working and change his life forever in the process. That is a really funny way of getting back at someone. It's cool that the original poster's idea was that, hey, maybe if I turn off the Wi-Fi, he will stop bothering me at night and I can finally get some sleep. But instead, he actually kind of like, I don't know, changed this guy's life for the better. Like, think about it. This guy was doing nothing. He was playing Fortnite all night, all the time, instead of getting a job or getting some kind of work experience. I mean, he could very well still be doing that to this day if this friend didn't step in and do this. I mean, what a crazy butterfly effect this was. So honestly, good for the original poster for doing this. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Staying up all hours of the night and disturbing everyone around you, all so you can play Fortnite, is incredibly rude and just so unfair. So shutting down the Wi-Fi and teaching this guy a lesson in a roundabout way is probably the most wholesome form of revenge I've ever seen in my life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked down below in the description. Am I the jerk for ignoring a guy that was making me uncomfortable on a university class trip? Here's what happened. So I recently went on a trip with my friend organized by my university class. On the first day, this guy from another class approached us and asked if he could join us for lunch. We noticed that everyone else in his class was avoiding him, but we thought he was lonely, so we agreed for him to eat with us. Immediately, it was clear why his classmates ignored him. He seems to be unaware of most social clues and has some uncommon hobbies. However, I try to be nice to him, while my friend on the other side keeps being rude to him and acts very bothered by his presence. The trip goes on and the guy keeps staring at us from afar. He tries to interact with us despite us clearly showing that we want to be by ourselves, and he asks both me and my friend for our numbers and that he wants to go out for drinks later that night, but we collectively say no. However, he waits until I am alone and corners me, asking again for my number. Eventually though, I do give in, since my professors are close by and I don't want to cause a scene. And maybe this is where I made a mistake. Throughout the day, he starts complimenting me, specifically my physical appearance. I don't engage with him, and then he starts complaining that I never speak to him. him, and that still he knows nothing about me. My professors eventually jump in on that, agreeing that I am being extra quiet. I admit that I am sensitive about this topic, so I start becoming extra uncomfortable. This constant annoyance continues, with him complaining that I am not speaking enough, and that I am not smiling, and all these other weird things. I was already uncomfortable at this point. Then I made a joke to my friend, saying that I was so tired, I would gladly fall asleep right there at that bed in the shop window. This guy then chimes in, commenting that lots of people would surely pay to look at me. My friend then scolds him for being a weirdo, but he just plays dumb. Later that night, we all go to dinner, and this guy of course sits right in front of me. My friend sits next to me, but with her back directed towards me throughout the whole dinner, so I'm forced to interact with this guy, while my professors keep teasing me because I'm being so quiet. My friend even encourages the guy to keep talking to me, despite me previously telling her that I was very uncomfortable. In the end, the guy asked me to go out together. I refuse, saying to him that I'm a very busy person. At this point, I was straight up panicking, and I was so stupid not to say I'm in a relationship or that I'm not interested. He keeps insisting, and I keep rejecting him. Finally, the dinner ends, and I'm very upset both at him and my friend for literally not helping me throughout the entire night. It was so uncomfortable. The first day we are all back home, he texts me asking me how I'm doing, and of course, I don't reply, since I am still bothered by the way he acted. My friend, however, tells me I was being too harsh on him. So honestly, I'm at a loss, and I seriously am not sure what to do. I feel like I gave him so many signals that I was not interested, and he actively chose to ignore them. On the other side, maybe I was not clear enough on not being interested in him. So am I the jerk for trying to ignore this guy, even though he keeps trying to pursue me? What should I do? First off, I don't think you're the jerk for ignoring this guy. It can certainly be seen as a tactic to get out of this situation, but honestly, you need to be upfront with him. This guy does not pick up on social clues. He is not going to get any of the signals that you're putting down. He will keep missing this until you finally say exactly what you mean. Any of these passive remarks or passing comments, or even these bad vibes you're giving off, are clearly going over his head. So the obvious answer here would be to text him back and say, I don't like you, you make me uncomfortable, please leave me alone. And sure, that is a pretty cut and dry response, but this guy is not taking no for an answer. He was making really weird comments about your body. He was saying that people would pay to watch you sleep, and he was clearly not picking up that you're not enjoying his company and that you really want him to leave you alone. So I think it's honestly time to say something. And sure, you could just block him and then move on with your life, but he could always show up once again and still try to pursue you. And then you're gonna have to explain away why you blocked him in the first place. So if I was in your shoes, I would be sending that text message much sooner than later. I mean, honestly, you deserve the peace of mind. This guy was being a weirdo, and you have no obligation to try and be nice to him. He was clearly being a weirdo, and there is no reason that you should have to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to help out my little brother after he got sick at a family wedding, despite the fact that I warned him to slow down on how much he was eating? Here's what happened. So my brother, who we will call Ryan, that's not his real name, went to a family wedding yesterday. To cut to the chase, he is an overeater. This has always been an issue, but as of lately, since he moved out, it has skyrocketed. During the wedding, I noticed he was eating an abnormal amount of food. First, he went to an all-you-can-eat candy table and filled his plate to the top with candy. Then he ended up going back and forth from the candy table to the buffet, and I noticed that he went back and forth at least 3 times with full plates of food. I decided to walk over to him and say something because this was completely out of control. So I went over to him and I warned him that he's overeating and that he might get sick again like he has in the past. He got mad at me for bringing up his past and told me to mind my own business. So I decided to do just that. I ignored him and I went back to the dance floor. A half an hour later, I see him briskly walking over to me with a horrified look on his face. He pulled me aside and right away, I noticed that something was wrong, and he also smelled. He told me to follow him to the bathroom, and I realized as we were walking there that he was holding his bottom, walking weird and smelling like you know what. Yeah, that just happened. I immediately scolded him and flat out asked why he went to the bathroom in his pants. He told me to wait until he got out of the bathroom, but I snapped and I started to say to him, "What in the world is wrong with you?" Once we got to the bathroom, he told me to block the door, and I said no other people need to use this. He said that he just needs to clean his pants, and if I can block the door while he does it, then I could get someone else to help him out. At this point, I was so mad, I said absolutely not. Instead, I'll just mind my own business. I then went to walk out. As I walked out, our grandfather walked in and saw him taking off his pants to run it under the sink to try and clean it off. Our grandfather just looked at both of us and walked out of the bathroom. I walked out too, because I was so embarrassed to be associated with this. Somehow it spread and I heard people whispering about it, and even some other people were laughing really hard about this. He ended up leaving and not going to the family brunch later today. I never wanted to be involved in this, and I tried to warn him what would happen. I'm upset because now he's not answering my text messages and just wants this to be forgotten overall. But I can't help but ask, am I the jerk for not helping my little brother out when he got sick at a family wedding? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your brother is an adult. He is 19 years old. I mean, you tried to warn him. You tried to tell him, hey, you really shouldn't overeat because things might end in disaster like they have before. I mean, this guy clearly has some kind of medical issue or some kind of allergy that he's clearly not aware of. Because going to the bathroom in your pants all of a sudden, after 30 minutes of you basically warning them that, hey, you're kind of overdoing it, might mean that he's allergic to something that he's just not aware of. And you know what? It's not like you told everybody else that this happened. It's not like you went up to the DJ and announced it over the microphone, hey, my brother just went to the bathroom in his pants, everybody go look. It sounds like the grandfather's the one that let it slip, so if anything, he should be mad at him, not you. You didn't do anything. So I would not feel bad about this situation in the slightest. You tried to help your adult brother. You tried to tell him to take his foot off the gas, but this guy clearly overdid it, and the only person he has to thank is himself. My girlfriend is pushing me very hard to get married with her right away, suggesting that I even take out a loan or get some credit cards to pay for the ring that she wants. And now I'm at a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I need some advice dealing with the pressure my girlfriend is putting on me to propose to her. We started dating in February of 2022 and have been in a long-distance relationship together for about 60% of the time. I live in the United States and she lives in Peru. I love her so much and we do great things together, and I want my life with her. I just don't have the finances together to do it at this moment, especially when it comes to buying a nice ring that she wants. I feel ready to get engaged with her, and I understand they do things faster in her culture. To us, it does not serve us any advantage, as we weren't planning on starting the paperwork for her visa to the US until November of this year. But I am willing to compromise in the best ways I can. Basically, I just graduated college last month, and I'm currently looking for a job in my field. Financially speaking, my family paid for my tuition and college expenses. I worked, but I still covered my own expenses, such as a car, phone, and other costs. Recently, I spent about $2,000 on the transmission that failed in my own car, as well as other expenses that have come up, and it's all basically added up to make my money a bit tighter than it normally would be. I see myself working in about a month, hopefully, and I should be financially stable with a good income around October or November, and that's right about when I want to purchase a nice ring, which is in my budget of a little under $2,000. It's a lot of stress because I'm going to see her in her country in 2 weeks, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. When it comes to the ring I want to buy, I told her specifically right now, I can't afford anything more than $900, as I've had a lot of expenses, and I'm going to have upcoming travel expenses just to see her. She gets upset when I say that, because she doesn't want a cheap ring that she will have for the rest of her life. She has said that she is wasting time waiting for it. She has told many people that we will figure out a way to make it happen, whether it's putting it on a credit card or borrowing money from parents. My parents have helped a lot, and I appreciate how they helped me through college, but I don't want to ask more from them in terms of financial help. What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like this is super rushed in my opinion. Your girlfriend is not considering you or your wallet in the slightest. Like, sure, she wants a really nice ring, and she wants something that she's going to enjoy the rest of her life, but what she isn't getting is that you don't have money for it right now. Literally, the timing is all wrong. And also, it seems a little sketchy that she's pressuring you to get married, as well as to take on unnecessary debt, just so she can have a really nice ring. I mean, you've only been dating her for 18 months. That, in my opinion, is a big red flag. Like, why is she being so pushy and trying to get you to marry her so quickly? And sure, it's not like you don't want to marry her. Obviously, you have your sights set on spending the rest of your life with her, but it really seems like she just doesn't care about your financial situation, and she's more interested in getting married and having that ring on her finger. Like, money doesn't grow on trees, people. It's not like you can just bring that money out of nowhere, and I think it would be completely unwise to take out credit cards and start borrowing money from other people just to try and make this happen simply because she wants it. It comes off as really disrespectful, and it really seems like she's just disregarding your feelings as well as the reality of your financial situation situation altogether. So honestly, if she really does love you, she should be willing to wait for a proper ring as well as the proper timing to get married, because right now she is being completely irrational and you don't deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not wanting to dedicate half of my wedding to my fiance's sister? Here's what happened. To start things out, all names in this story are fake. I got engaged to my boyfriend John in early 2023 and our wedding is scheduled for early 2024. John has a sister by the name of Jane, who's 15 years old and was recently diagnosed with leukemia. She's receiving chemotherapy and as far as I know, it's not terminal. One of Jane's dreams in life is to get married. Ever since I've known her, she's talked about her future wedding and has planned every last detail. Since she got diagnosed, she's become very worried that she won't be able to have her dream wedding because she might pass before that happens. Based on what I know about her diagnosis, she'll likely survive and go on to live a full life, but it's a definitive possibility that she could pass away. John and I are currently in the wedding planning stage, and this is also where we might be the jerks in the situation. John's parents approached us a few days ago and asked if we would be willing to dedicate some of our wedding time to Jane, since she might not get her own someday. According to them, Jane wants to wear a wedding dress, invite a lot of her friends, have a say in the food, the cake, the decorations, and have a first dance with her boyfriend. They said it's better to do this at our wedding because then the family can celebrate all together. John and I were shocked that they would ask this, since we thought that our wedding would be about us. I know Jane is struggling, and I feel completely awful for her since no teenager should have their youth ruined by cancer. But I don't see why we can't have a separate party for Jane instead of having to dedicate half of our day to her, especially since she would likely get most of the attention due to her condition in the first place. Additionally, it would cost a lot more money just to pay for Jane's friends to attend the wedding, and John and I are definitely not made of money. John and I told his parents that we would have to think about it, but after discussing it, we decided it would be better to say no because we would prefer our day to be about us, but we would be more willing to pitch in funds and help plan a separate party specifically for Jane. But as you probably can guess, when we informed John's parents about this, they were absolutely furious. They said that they couldn't believe we were prioritizing ourselves over a child with cancer and that we were being selfish. They said this might be Jane's only chance for a wedding and how dare we deny her dying wish. I said I didn't understand why we couldn't have a separate party, but John's parents said they wanted it to feel authentic for Jane, so it would be better to do it at an actual wedding. When they started raising their voices, John and I just left. But since then, John's family has been spamming us with messages about how terrible we're being towards Jane and how they can't believe we're not being considerate of her wishes. So honestly, are we being unreasonable here? Are we being jerks for not wanting to dedicate half of my wedding to my fiance's sister? Honestly, this is insane to me. John's parents are just straight up lazy. Can I just say that? Instead of planning something separate for their daughter who has leukemia, they're thinking to themselves, oh, I know what we can do. We could just have it at this wedding that's gonna happen. Like, first off, that's a terrible idea. And if I was in John and the original poster situation, you better believe I'm gonna say no. That is so unbelievably inappropriate, and it's not fair for the people actually getting married. Like, if anybody is being inconsiderate right now, it's John's parents. And obviously they're getting upset because now they have to throw two different parties in this situation. They have to plan for John and the original poster's wedding, as well as this weird fake wedding they're doing for their daughter, which, by the way, is really weird in my opinion. Like, these people are trying to have a fake wedding for a child. This girl is 15 years old. Like, if they really want to have this moment for their daughter to experience what it's like to get married, or some kind of imitation of it, they easily could plan this with some kind of organization. There are definitely resources available for somebody to try and pull this off at a reasonable rate. But John's parents don't want to do that. They want to be lazy and try and hijack this person's wedding, and that is incredibly inappropriate. And when they're told no, they try to gaslight these people and be like, wow, you are being so inconsiderate right now. Like, no one's being inconsiderate except for you. You're literally using your daughter as a guilt-tripping device to try and push to have her in this wedding. Like, what is happening right now? Maybe just have like a wedding-themed birthday party or something like that. Go over the top, do whatever you want. But taking away from someone's actual, like, real-world wedding, that, in my opinion, is so disrespectful, and there is no way in the world I would ever let that slide if I was in your shoes. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius? Everything will be linked down below in the description.